starting streaming now for Picture Show number 63.
Holy smokes, it's 63.
6 plus 3 equals 9, and 9 equals completion, aka death, and rebirth, and death, and rebirth, and death. Please join us this week for a proverbial celebration and investigation of the word and the concept and the reality of death.
Whoa, death!
3, 2, 1, death.
Death.
If you said that instead of go, people would get annoyed. It says 0 are watching. Nobody even cares about death. I wouldn't be surprised if no one tunes in because of death. Oh, hey, it's Snake Jones. I see Snake Jones. What up, Snake? What up? Let's see. Oh, I guess I better promote. Please, tell your friends.
Oh yeah, man, I tell your friends. Let's go Snake Jones.
Oh, I gotta get the link, gotta get the link.
Oh, yeah, we should promote.
We should write a bot that does this part. I wish we were better at writing bots.
You know how most of my bot writing starts out?
Wouldn't it be awesome if there was a bot that it just was watching the YouTube channel all the time, and as soon as we went live, it just announced it on Twitter and Facebook.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
It opened my email application and prompted me to send an email with the link already in there. I'll bet James True knows how to do all that. Hey, it says on here there's 3 folks watching. Welcome.
Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Welcome to the It's Pretty Dang Close to Halloween, Let's Talk About Death show. And we'll probably talk about Kanye too. And maybe we'll talk about how good of dancers they are in Israel.
Oh yeah, they love dancing. Especially those students that like the food.
You know, you gotta keep the groypers happy. They're always lurking and they'll mess you up, so you gotta keep them happy.
Nice.
Let's see what happens. We're trying again. It says we're live. Stream resumed. We'll see. That's looking better on my end. Hopefully that's working a little better, folks. Welcome back. Windhammer says it's buffering every couple seconds. Even ever since we came back, it is. Come on, man. You let us have a stream every other week. There's 9 people here putting up with a lot of buffering, Jim. Can you still hear me, Jim?
I hear you.
Alright, well, let's see here. Maybe it's not. Yeah, it's still buffering pretty hard because it's jumping on me here. I just paused the music. Hi, everybody.
Hi, everybody.
Let's see. I'm just gonna go ahead and switch us over to regular cam here. Let's see what happens. Maybe killing that Adam Lore music will fix it. If not, I guess we're gonna have to talk about more serious issues like me doing a full-blown reboot or you trying to stream from your location.
Maybe the internets are trying to track or to. They don't want us talking about the heavy stuff today.
Yeah, that's just it. They're like, you want to experience some virtual death? Here, have your stream die a long, slow, painful, suffering death.
A long, slow, painful death.
Yeah, it still says video output is low. I'm not sure why. Misty reports in the chat that she thinks it's working again. Well, I did stop the stream and restart it. Yeah, maybe that trying to roll the intro music was just taking a little bit more. So, let's give an official welcome to Art's Only Picture Show number, I almost said 69. I think it's only 63. 63. And we're going to talk about death because it's that time of year, folks. It's death time. Everything's dying. And I hear via our Discord server that in some of the places where our fans and other participants reside, that people are really getting into Halloween and they're dressing up like serial killers and they're acting like psychopaths and they're becoming ever more gory and disgusting with their costuming. Krista and some other folks were lamenting how terrifying and strange Halloween has become in some areas. And I think it's really weird. I mean, we don't see too much of that around here, huh, Jim?
No, probably like sexy cat outfits and I'm not sure. I saw some people dressed like superheroes this weekend.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty normal. I mean, we do get. I've noticed over the years, I've always kind of despised Christmas decorations. Like, unless you have the most subtle, monocolor, non-flashing, non-chasing lights with maybe just a single reindeer or like an outdoor tree decorated to complement your indoor tree in the window. Like, what I'm saying is, I hate Christmas decorations when they look like a circus. And I've noticed over the years the slow ramping up, A, of companies selling Halloween decorations. And B, of course, of people obliging these companies and buying this stuff. Like, there's a great big inflatable motorcycle that was tipped over on its side today. It's supposed to be like death riding a motorcycle, you know? It kind of looks like Saturn or something.
Oh, like a skull guy? You know, like a Ghost Rider style skeleton head death riding a motorcycle? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, yeah. Maybe I'm causing this problem here. I'm going to try one more fix because I tried to put my microphone on. I'm going to push start streaming and see if it goes without having the YouTube window open.
I just went to offline. Offline. I just went to offline.
Oh yeah, we're back on now.
Are we on?
Folks, welcome back and thank you for tolerating this what do you call technical difficulties. That's what they used to always say on the TV channels, right? Please stand by. We are experiencing technical difficulties. Technical difficulties. Seems to be some.
Are we done with the meme?
Yeah, we're on. We've been on for a while. You want me to go back to the memes?
I didn't have my gloves on, so.
Yeah, we are dressed in costume. We hope you are also dressed in costume. I hope you gave some candy to the Mormons and the Jehovah's Witnesses when they came by today to talk about death. Oh, yeah. The camera, it's this camera now. Okay. Hi, everybody. Oh, I guess I should even my camera up. First, please admire Jim's most excellent costume. I'd say we're going to send out a... and you're going to have to really watch the chat, because I don't even have the YouTube window open. I figure that's one way this works.
Happy Halloween, everybody.
The difficulties are technical. Oh, and Zach Lawnbot is saying that there's an echo.
Oh, snap. I don't hear an echo.
Yeah, me neither.
This works.
Yeah, are we still getting an echo? I'm just checking. I'm checking. Technical. Oh, and Zach Lawnbot is saying that there's an echo.
It's like a tin can sort of echo.
Yeah, I'm not hearing it right now. From your, I'm hearing your. What big eyes you have. Oh, and I guess I should do everyone a favor and stand back and show them that I'm also wearing a costume. I have to adjust this camera a little here.
Can anyone guess what that particular...
Hold on here.
What that's called, huh?
I'm all that jazz. Check this out. Look at that. Even jazz socks.
Oh.
If I get too hot, I can take this sweatshirt off, and I got my jazz tank top on. So, people will never understand like we do, Jim. They'll never understand like we do.
Yeah.
It's just a joke to people. Until you've sat around with the scissors and cut up hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these cups, then you'll never understand. You're not a part of the club. And it's not a club you really want to be a part of, so. But yeah, hopefully we're getting some regular video and audio. And I saw that Snake Jones was complimenting our topic. And I'm perfectly excited, glad, and happy to talk about death if YouTube will let us. Don't kill us, YouTube.
Don't kill us, YouTube.
Happy Halloween. I just turned 44 years old, October 29th. So I still need to make that proverbial, oh my God, thank you to everybody on Facebook. It's so embarrassing. Facebook like ramps everybody up for your birthday. And like you get this like huge Rice Krispie treat of birthday wishes. Like it's big enough to scare you. Probably some people like have an anxiety attack and stay off of Facebook, I'll bet. People who are like neurotic and have anxiety, probably they think about it a month early. Like how offensively aggressive people are going to be surrounding their birthday. Because Facebook tells everybody, hey, it's SB's birthday. And so people are sending me private messages. People are sending me videos. People are sending me songs. Like they're singing songs. And then, of course, friends and family who really love me are like buying me gifts and sending me messages and calling me on the telephone, taking me out for something to eat. And it's just overwhelming. I feel really embarrassed that this many people actually love me and find me appealing. Wow. I am grateful. But yeah, 44 all year, Jim.
For the whole year?
Yeah, I'm going to go with it. I'm not going to go back to 43. Some people do that, they'll just be their new age for a couple weeks and then they'll go back. But I'm not going to do that.
Sometimes I do that, but it's not because I consciously want to be younger. It's because I forgot.
Oh, you know what? I'll bet the chat's not going to work on the screen. I'll bet the chat's not working on the screen because I didn't plug in the new one.
It's working.
Is it? Is it moving?
Yeah, it's moving. It's leftovers from last week, I would say. 44 and ready for more. That's a good one, Windhammer.
Yeah, we could look up 44 for fun. Maybe we'll do that later too. But let's go ahead and go over here to the media exam cam and go to our first definition. Not that one, this one. That one's kind of hard to see. There. Okay. So let's start with Black's Law 7th edition. Death. And to switch us over where our audience can see it.
Audience.
If you're just tuning in, folks, this week we're covering death. We're going to talk about death. We're going to talk about definitions, symbols, gods surrounding death, experiences you might have had with death, art and music that have to do with death. Whether or not you've ever seen a dead body. I've got the word drowning written down here for some reason.
Yeah, because of drowning.
And if you don't know, maybe we'll look at Samhain as a definition too, just so people know why I keep saying that, because, it's part of the thing. Actually, we can start with that. Check this out. If you have your handy 2019 occult calendar,
nice.
You can look up, I'm sure it's in here, October 24th was the Feast of Raphael. 28th was the Feast of St. Jude. That's pretty close to my birthday.
Raphael's one of my favorite Ninja Turtles, too.
Yeah, I really like St. Jude because the Beatles sing that song about him. Celebrates the patron saint of lost causes.
St. Jude. I went to this
and of the impossible. Well, no kidding that's right, like almost on my birthday. Like a lost cause, something that's almost impossible. 6 weeks early, here comes Sean. His mom's just barely 15. Let's do this.
I went to a kindergarten in this building called St. Jude's, and it was a kindergarten in an old folks' home. So that's funny that he's the saint of lost causes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it kind of says it in a good way. So we're getting sidetracked here, folks, but that's what happens when you try to focus on death. No one really wants to focus on it, so they go ahead and grab onto something nearby, and they focus on that instead. Don't believe me? Next time you're at the bank, standing in a long line, say, hey, to the guy next to you or the gal behind you, what do you think of death? And see how they react. It's very rare that you'll find someone like me, like, oh, I've been thinking about it my whole life. You want to talk about it? I'm obsessed with it. When I was in high school, I used to tell people that I welcome death with a morbid curiosity. But I don't really do that anymore. I mean, it's gonna come, but I'm not trying to hurry it up, or I'm not trying to scratch the surface and like get a little taste or nothing. I don't need a sample. I'm okay.
I didn't really ever think about it until it was like around Christmas when I was 12. My family went to Hawaii for Christmas, and we were sitting in this Mexican restaurant eating dinner, and on the wall they had like traditional like sort of Mexican restaurant style art and stuff on the walls, and they had some like wooden carved devil masks on the wall.
Yeah.
And I was looking at them, and then like all of a sudden I got this chill, and I just started thinking about death, like super hard. I'm like feeling really melancholy about it, and like that whole Christmas I was just like consumed with the ever-present thought that mortality, like I'm gonna die, and what is there after life, and
the existential crisis, especially when you're about 13, for me, is like, oh man, like it's weird enough that I'm alive, but I'm definitely gonna die, and that's jacked up.
Yeah.
I'm having a hard time even internalizing being alive at that point. You know, you're 13 and you're just kind of flubbing around, being fat and stinky or whatever. Some kids are gangly and stinky, but then sometimes it hits you like, whoa, I'm here. And it just blows your mind. Like, crap, how's that? Your brain tries to resolve it. Like, divide by 0, and you go, and as if that's not bad enough, then your brain's like, oh yeah, and you're going to leave forever. Like, what?
Yeah.
This place is weird.
Your animation is gone. Erased forever. It's surreal.
And that's the other thing is I used to believe that too, that it, like, you know, Protestant Christianity teaches you kind of like a one-shot, one-kill thing, you know, like you get this crappy life, and if you're lucky, you're born in a first world country, and you figure out how to manage this life somewhere. If you're pretty good, you might be able to figure it out by the time you're 35, but most people it's more like me, like 44, like, okay, I kind of understand how to work a job and go to the bathroom, and like I do some hobbies, you know, and so you got like 30 years, 40 years left, and then they're like, and that's it. But I don't believe that anymore. I'm more inclined to think reincarnation is real. I've read and heard testimony from people of some pretty dang compelling evidence. Like that little kid that knew where the money was inside the house, little Asian kid. Have you seen that clip from a documentary or whatever?
Oh,
I'll have to look it up later or something and we can find it. But it was a documentary about reincarnation. And like this kid comes back and he's giving him all this information. And he goes to his old house and opens up the wall and pulls out money, like a decent amount of money. And it's like, well, that's pretty good evidence to me. If that little kid knows where the money's hidden in the wall, maybe he's telling the truth about being that guy that used to live here.
Was it in the United States?
Mm-mm. It was either India or like Tibet. I don't remember. It was a long time ago because I looked into it a long time ago when I first I'd say it was the beginning of me kind of becoming eventually fascinated with gnosis and being a lot less taboo about occult and esoteric subjects. So I used to be a pretty typical Protestant Christian guy. Like, hey, it's all about Jesus, and anyone that even dares to read a Crowley book is a dumbass. They don't know what they're getting into. You know, you better watch out for your soul. And I'm not even saying that that's not true, but once you develop some strength and confidence in your relationship to the world, and especially your relationship to God, then you can approach a lot of things, you know, and so you can come back and look at things, and my opinion of all that stuff has changed pretty drastically, you know. But back in the day, I was looking it up, you know, like, what do you mean reincarnate? Because the Christian preachers will make it sound like it's the worst thing ever. And they also make it sound like Christians don't believe in reincarnation, which is a huge contradiction. Like, when Jesus comes back and they're talking about when Jesus comes and Saint John, they're asking questions about him, and all of the apostles are saying, well, all the people in the crowds, they think that John is Elijah, and, you know, that you might be Elijah, or that you're some other prophet. So there's this huge implication of reincarnation in the Bible. And then if you go back and study the saints, like there's one of my favorite saints that I found, and he's an Orthodox saint. I'm not sure if the Catholics consider him a saint or not, but his name is Origen, and it's spelled with a G-E-I-N, but it's just like the word origin, like beginning. And Origen like believed that reincarnation was real, and that everybody was eventually going to catch up and do right and be saved, including the devil himself. Yeah. Which, you know, in comparison to what you're going to learn down at the Baptist church is, well, you don't go up into Baptist church and be like, hey, let's pray for the devil today. He's going to be saved someday. I wouldn't recommend it. You will not be well received.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Well, here, I'm going to tell a little funny story that I heard an Adventist preacher use as an anecdote, and then we'll read the definition. There was a grumpy guy at work. And of course, there's like the old Christian lady who's always happy and always positive. And the grumpy guy is just getting sick of her positive attitude, because she's just always, no matter what, she has something good to say. And it's just grinding his gears, man. He can't stand that this Christian lady She can't be perturbed. And so he thinks, I finally got it. And he says, oh, yeah, I know you're having such a happy day. So tell me, what do you think about Satan? And she says, he sure is busy. I always thought that was a great anecdote. So
That's funny.
all right, well, I guess let's start with Samhain, and then we'll read the definition of death. So here in the occult calendar for 2019, it says Halloween, Samhain, also All Hallows Eve, midpoint between the autumnal equinox and summer solstice. Samhain is a celebration of ancestors and others who've passed on, a Day of the Dead style festival. Secular Halloween lost contact with the roots for a while, but slowly rediscovered them. In modern neo-paganism, it marks the new year and celebrates the entrance of the fallen solar god, see summer solstice, into the underworld. The veils between the physical and spiritual worlds are thin at this time, making a good time for evocation and divination. Now it says Feast of Bast. So there's not a new date here. I've never heard of this. The Feast of Bast, B-A-S-T, Bast, celebrates the Egyptian goddess of cats, associated with perfumes and known to be a fierce protector of the home and children. Has a close relationship with the lion goddess Sekhmet. Interesting. I didn't know that. The Feast of Bast. Now that you'd think that'd be more popular on the internet than anything, like a Feast of Cats.
Of cats?
And like the internet is technically a Feast of Bast all year. I mean, there's all there really is on the internet is like cat pictures and GIFs and videos and porn. Everything else is mathematically really not important.
Did you say there's cat porn on the internet?
Well, Jim, if you don't know what Rule 34 is, you can look it up on your own time.
I don't think so.
But, anytime you're talking about pornography and animals, I would be very wary to type anything in.
Yeah, I'm keeping my safe search on.
You can just call someone that's naive enough to type it in for you. But don't type in, especially nowadays the way advertising is. I mean, the last thing I want is Google and Facebook trying to figure out how to effectively advertise to me. Yeah. After I've typed cat porn, I don't want to know what comes up. I know what comes up. Furry stuff. You get up on furry websites.
Oh.
There's probably a secret furry watching this stream right now, and they're looking at your costume thinking, I wonder if he'll sell me that. All right, so we're going to read death, the definition of death from Black's Law, the 7th edition. I do want to buy the 11th edition, but I haven't done it yet. So, death. This is according to the editor, Brian Garner. He's great on Twitter. Death, the ending of life, the cessation of all vital function and signs, also termed decease or demise. And under that we have brain death, the bodily condition of showing no response to external stimuli, no spontaneous movements, no breathing, no reflexes, and a flat reading. It says usually for a full day. On a machine that measures the brain's electrical activity, also termed legal death. Now, if anyone's curious why I would use the legal dictionary, it's because this is what the words technically really mean in our society. Because if it comes right down to it, this is what they're going to, if God forbid one of us dies and they're trying to argue about how it happened, what's going to happen next, these are the words, these are the definitions they're going to use to determine what they can legally do or not do. So I found this interesting when I looked at it earlier. Immediate death, see instantaneous death. A death occurring within a short time after an injury or seizure, but not instantaneously. So immediate death and instantaneous death are legally different. And even smaller letters here it says, a distinction has been made between instantaneous and immediate death. As an example of immediate rather than instantaneous death, the situation in which a blow on the head produces unconsciousness and renders the victim incapable of intelligent thought, speech, or action for several minutes until he dies. So, and it gives some reference there, and that's only since 1988 it looks like, so that's a pretty new thing. I thought that was kind of a trip, huh? There's a difference between dying immediately and dying instantaneously.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What is the difference?
Well, I just read it, but I see you were typing, so I'll sum it up. The difference is, so instantaneous is literally instantaneous, you know, like if atom bombs were real and you set one off right in front of you, allegedly you'd die immediately, right?
Vaporization.
Yeah, exactly. You know, if you jump into the volcano as you approach the bottom, it's getting a lot like instantaneous death.
If you were in a car crusher as it does its thing, that's pretty much
Yeah. Whereas they're saying here that immediate is, you know, you can get a hard bonk on the head or some kind of injury or seizure, and you're unable to remain conscious or produce any kind of intelligent thought or sign of life, and then maybe some amount of time elapses and you die. So you get bonked hard on the head and you go knocked out and kind of do the funky chicken, and then maybe it takes 2 minutes and you give up your vital signs. That would be immediate but not instantaneous.
Well, don't they say that, like, there's something in your cells that turns on that stops them from regenerating as fast as they, normally would regenerate, and that's what causes old age? I wonder if that would be technically the beginning of death. Once your body stops, trying to rejuvenate all the time.
Yeah, well, that's a good point. That because some people will say, like, well, the Alice in Chains lyric famously says that we're born into the grave, right? Like you're born and you immediately start dying. But I've never fully gotten behind that idea, because we do grow up and out and develop. We develop in so many ways from the time we're born up till, you could say your whole life long, but at least until 25 years old without any argument, right? Like you can't really top out until you get to about 25, 26 years old. And then you could argue that, I don't know, I guess I would argue that at that point we start going sideways. And then, like you said, eventually the body doesn't really want to effectively try and repair and regenerate itself. So at that point, are we starting to die whether we realize it or not? Is that it? It's a good question.
That's kind of how I always thought, but I know that death is a process.
Oh, it definitely is. My mother worked as a hospice and home health nurse for 20 years, and she knows, she is so wise in the realm of people dying, and she's so good and practiced at being next to someone during their end of life care that she could predict, pretty uncanny accuracy, she could predict what, how this whole process is going to go. And it's it's pretty useful to have somebody that has that kind of finger on the pulse of death, because then you can make a more comfortable and more intelligent set of decisions if you have to be around it. I want to encourage everyone tonight that the reason that we chose this was partly because of the time of year, and partly because it does softball us towards an eventual memorial stream and that kind of stuff for TRACY Twyman. But the other main reason is that if you're a person who never wants to face or deal with or talk about or confront anything to do with death, tonight's a good reminder that it's okay, and that it's actually encouraged in healthy societies, because we're all going there, man. We're all going there together eventually. We don't really know what's going to be there, but we can speculate. And there's a lot you can do to prepare yourself for your own entrance into the other world. And there's especially a lot I found that you can do if you're not afraid and spooked and freaked out by death. You can really be useful when something bad happens. Sometimes people get injured and you don't know if they're going to die. Sometimes people get murdered or they die unexpectedly. It happened to all of us that have been following this show. And so if you've got your head on and your heart's in it, then you can be helpful. And that's really, that was the real reason behind this. I was like, well, it's the time of year, and I feel like we're still in this mourning process together, because we lost Tracy. And so this is an easy way to this is like a way to intellectually touch it and not quite emotionally touch it yet, you know. That's what I felt. I'm seeing Snake Jones. I know is well acquainted with death and not afraid of death. I've talked to him about it. I see him talking about it in the chat there, and I recommend people to try and take that approach to whatever degree you can, because you'll be much better off in the long run if when I'm getting a private message. Sorry, I got distracted. You know, you'd be better off if you can at least sit with it. But it's not easy. It's hard. But the time we have here, I think a big part of it is really just to practice and be ready for whatever this is. If it happens to someone outside of us, to somehow accept it and go through the process of grief and misunderstanding and denial. You know, sometimes you go through that process even if it's not death, right?
Yeah. Some people fear life and some people fear death.
That's true. People do. People are afraid of life. I never understood that because I'm kind of wackadoo. I'm kind of over the top and bombastic, so I'm not really too afraid of life.
Yeah,
I was afraid of death when I was young, like you were describing, like because that kind of stuff happens. You're just a kid. Everything's okay. It seems pretty normal. You know, maybe you're uncomfortable because your underwear are getting too small. But for the most part, everything's okay. You're trying to eat your tacos. You look up, and here's a big wooden devil mask. And your brain's like, oh, yeah, everything and everyone ever is going to die. And then you just spin out. You know, like, oh, crap. You know, and it might last all the way till past Christmas, you know. And I know one of my brothers feels that way. Like, he's just super happy when, like, this time of year is over and we're getting closer to Christmas. He's always happier. You know, like, oh, good. This is not a big Halloween fan, you know.
Yeah. It is. The veil is thinner at this time of year. So this stuff really, it's when you think about it, it's when you start getting depressed, too, if you have that tendency. Yeah,
that's, I figured that's another opportunity is to encourage people, like, if you do feel depressed or anxious or weirded out by it, A, you can always kill the stream if you don't want to hear any more about it. There's other things to do. But B, I've found that just sitting with things really makes a difference. And I used to never be able to do that when I was younger. I could never just sit with stuff. I would completely avoid it, get stoned or get drunk, or I would just get angry. That was my solution for everything, is just to translate any sadness or confusion or whatever feelings might pop up. If it was joy or happiness, I'd be cool. But if it was anything else, I would just translate it into anger and be pissed off. And usually try to go be by myself too, so that I wouldn't have to be angry at anyone or around anyone. But if instead you just could take control of your breathing and maybe do a count of 3 in, hold for 6, and then slowly breathe out through your nose for 9, or anything like that. Have you seen these little GIFs, Jim? They've got them on, it's on Facebook, so you probably haven't seen it, but they've got like this little box that grows up and kind of shows you a breathing pattern and grows back down.
No, I haven't seen
it. It's like a visual stimuli for how to regulate your breathing. And a lady taught me this in a really expensive counselor I paid for a while. And it really changed my life, man, to be able to sit with sadness if something really bad happens, to not immediately try and either be angry or pretend like it's not happening. It really helped me out, you know?
Yeah. The only time I forget how to breathe is when I think about it.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, yeah. I mean, people who've never really consistently focused on their breath don't really understand why. It just sounds stupid. It just sounds like something a yoga instructor says on a VHS tape. But as soon as you think about your breath for real, like you don't just, not just in passing, but you like, okay, here I'm breathing, I can feel it. It kind of screws you up. And then you have to take control of it. And if you do it right, you can do that and then kind of let it back go so you're not thinking about it and keep that rhythm that you started, right?
Yeah.
So I was looking at the other definitions here. I'm going to read a little bit more. We got natural death. That's one. Bodily death as opposed to civil death. I have the definition for civil death. Now that's an interesting thing. We can get into that later. And death from causes other than accident or violence. Death from natural causes, also termed mors naturalis. Interesting. So, yeah, that must be the Latin. But like mors, like mort. I bet a lot of people don't know that mortgage is a death pledge, right? The mortgage on your house, that's mort, is the same as mortuary. So presumptive death, I'm not sure if I know this one. Presumptive death, death inferred from proof of the person's long unexplained absence, usually after 7 years. Okay, yeah. Okay, so there's I guess we could jump into that story. I think it was you that told me about it, or I read it in a book. But this guy, he was ducking out on everything. Like, I don't know if he had child support or he had debt, but he just bailed. And they couldn't find him for 7 years. No one could. The legal system, his family, his friends, nobody knew where he was for 7 years. And so they all just presumed that he must have died and that they didn't know how or why. So they issued him a death certificate. And so he was dead. I'll get the other death up here. I'll change it over. Let's see. This one. So here's civil death. So civilly, he was dead. And he finally came back and tried to face life. And he had to go to court and beg the judge to try and reinstate him, and he really couldn't. I don't know what they did. I think they did finally figure out how to resurrect him, but it was like a huge hassle because it's a big deal to issue a death certificate. They don't just hand them out.
People are dying to get them.
Yeah, quite literally. Yeah. Now my great grandfather on my mom's side, he used to run a big cemetery, and that was his one main great grandpa joke was, you drive by where he worked and he would say, you know why they put that fence around the cemetery there where I work? And you'd say, why, Grandpa? And he'd say, because people are dying to get in.
I had a landlord, and one day he was also my neighbor. One day he came over and he was like, well, I'm a landowner now. I've got some property. Do you want to see it? And I was like, okay. And so we got in my truck and we drove over, and he's like, it's over here, right turn. And we pulled into the cemetery. I was like, awesome. We're getting lots.
Yeah, that's crazy. I remember that guy. Yeah, because I bought a typewriter from him, right? Same guy, right?
Good guy, yeah.
Yeah.
Good guy.
Well, here, I'm going to go back to other death here for just a second because I don't want to miss anything. So, presumptive death is people just like, we haven't seen Jim for 10 years. I think he's dead, Yeah, I would never think. I usually don't think that way anyway because I can feel it. Like, my stepdad vanished off the face of the earth for 13 years, but I knew he was alive because he came to me in my dreams and I could feel it, Just the same as tragically, one of my favorite living artists in the world passed away. Jesse Waugh was an amazing painter and artist, and he was one of the main reasons I really got deeper into TRACY Twyman's work because he did a great interview that's still up on the YouTubes about the Baphomet book. Like, he asked her questions one chapter heading at a time, and it really expanded the scope of how she could answer and the details she could get into. And so I became friends with him and sent him messages and stuff, and he even printed up one of my memes and hung it in his art studio. And I was keeping in touch with him, and he had been sick, and then I hadn't heard from him for a while, and I had a really bad feeling. Like, I just had a really bad feeling, man, for a while. And then just the other day, somebody posted on his Facebook that they were sorry to let everybody know that he'd actually passed away. And I'd sent him a message 15 days before he died, telling him I would pray for him and hoping that he would recover. And so that feeling, I guess my own personal dealing with presumptive death is it's not like the technical civil side of it, Like, I have a feeling in my gut whether or not somebody's still alive, and it's pretty accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm seeing in the chat, Colin says, love Jesse Waugh's pulcherism philosophy. I'm a total pulcherist because of Jesse Waugh. And pulcherism and pulchritude all have to do with the concept that true, definable beauty exists in the world, and it exists especially in the world of art. And that you can't say, oh, we smeared some poop and some mud and some blood on a canvas and now we're going to call it beautiful. That doesn't work, because beauty has real attributes. It has definitions that you have to follow. And he wrote a whole manifesto, and I highly recommend it to people. It's called the Pulchurist Manifesto, explaining how he's going to bring beauty back into the world of art. And as long as I'm alive, I'll be one of those guys. I'll be a pulcherist, right? I feel like I have to carry on his legacy now, because I was already taking that title onto myself when he was alive anyway. I told him, I'm with you, man. I'm a pulcherist. I want art to be beautiful, if it's going to be beautiful, not to call it. To me, it's blasphemy to say it's beautiful when it's not. It's not. If something's not beautiful, you shouldn't say it is. It's just confusing and stupid.
Did you mention who it was, that your friend that passed away recently?
Yeah, Jesse Waugh. I told him.
Okay.
Some people knew him. But yeah, it really, it hit me pretty hard. You saw me that day. I was kind of down, and then I told you. I didn't tell you till the end of the day, and I kind of felt bad. I'm sorry, man. I should have told you when you first came in, but it got to me, because that's like, man, that's two of the most inspiring people that got me out here doing this. If Jesse was the first guy to encourage me to come do an interview. If you go look my name up with his name, you'll find a paralleling interview. Like the first time it was before the Flat Earth debate with Andy Worski. It was before any episode of Picture Show. And it was just me and Jesse Waugh, and it was at his prompting. So, I mean, to me, that was really encouraging, So between him and Tracy coming and joining us all those weeks and hanging out and being a part of our crew, it's like, and really, they both kind of passed away at a similar time. It's just a trip, man. I guess God had requirements of them. There was something he needed back there. So he allowed him to take an early exit. Very sad.
Yeah. That's very sad.
Oh, so here's, let's go down the list so we don't skip any. Simultaneous death. Now this is weird. The death of two or more persons in the same mishap under circumstances that make it impossible to determine who died first. See Simultaneous Death Act and Comorientes. I don't know what that means. Comorientes. So I have a story about that. There was a young man, I'm not going to say his name, he is deceased, but I used to go over and we would work out and lift weights a little bit and hang out, and he was quite a bit younger than me. He's a smart kid, a little bit naive, and he had a fast car. His dad helped him buy this Ford Probe that had a really souped up motor in it. And he would do the weirdest thing, man. He would light a cigarette lighter and inhale it up his nose to burn out his nose hairs so they wouldn't be too long. And it was so weird. I even tried it once or twice. It's just so weird. But like, obviously you don't want to hold the flame very long. And he was just a young guy, 17 maybe. So I know it was just his own dumb idea. I don't think he saw anyone do it.
You can do that?
He's just like, I don't know. That's the kind of guy he was, right? Like he's looking at that cigarette lighter thinking, I could inhale this for just a second up my nose. Like I don't think that way.
Like a big lighter, or like
a big lighter. Big lighter. Like he'd light it and go.
Oh.
And like, I mean, it worked. I did it a couple times, but it's so smelly and weird. Yeah, I did it just because it's like, who the hell does this? Like, I'll try it. But the preacher's son used to always beg him to drive his fast car. And this kid wasn't a speed demon going fast. He was completely naive. Like he was a pure soul, man. Like just a regular, pure, happy-go-lucky guy. No real guile, no real arrogance in him, and no wild side really. He was shy. But that preacher's son that he was always hanging out with was always trying to encourage him to drink, get him out driving fast, kind of chasing girls, like the typical preacher's kid, a bad influence. And they went and I really tried. I tried to beg him not to let anyone drive his car, because I knew he let me drive it, and it was really souped up. I mean, it was a dangerous car. Somebody put an overbuilt motor in a Ford Probe, like with overhead cams and valves on top, and just it was fast. Um,
That's like a four-cylinder car, I think, usually. Maybe a six in the. But
no, yeah, I think it usually is a four, and it was a six. They put a six in there, and it was turbocharged, and
oh,
so it was fast. And long story short, they went out one night and had been drinking a little bit of beer, and the preacher's son begged to drive, and he did, and they went and drove too fast into a curve, and they put the car off the road right into a telephone pole, and it was simultaneous death. They both died at the identical time because the car kind of went up and top first into a perpendicular into a telephone pole, and it was just horrible. It was just horrible. I was so angry with that kid. And then they totally botched their funeral and made it all like a altar call, like trying to save people in the church and lying about the preacher's kid, making it sound like he was all upright and straight up when really it was pretty likely it was his fault, and the whole thing was just a travesty. I about walked. I was there with my friend in the wheelchair. Otherwise, I would have walked out because I was starting to get angry. Once again, back to the idea that if you don't manage your feelings, what you do is you end up with an anger default. That preacher standing up there in the church, lying, trying to get people to be saved at a funeral, and I'm getting mad. I'm thinking I'm gonna go up here and take the microphone from this guy and tell him what's up. But
it's kind of a tendency for the preacher's kids to act out.
It is
to act out.
Well, it's because the preachers don't really do right. You can't, I do believe in Jesus, and I've followed him since I was 13, but I've always defaulted to being more of a hedonist and hanging out with the people who are willing to sin and more likely to slip and use drugs or alcohol or have promiscuous sex and not become a hypocrite. Because I always have felt like the hypocrites are like the worst possible representation of what's supposed to be like the perfect example. Jesus is a pretty awesome example, but being looked down your nose, hard ass, judgmental, strict jerk is not in any way a mirror image of that. I used to tell people, remember when Jesus took his Louisville Slugger and he went up on the road and started hitting people on the elbows till they come sit down and listen to the sermon?
Oh, yeah.
And they say no, and I say, yeah, because he didn't do that. If people were walking by and laughing and ridiculing or saying, hey, we're not interested, he didn't get his feathers ruffled.
Yeah, they took the book of Steve out of the Bible.
Yeah. The book of Kyle.
The book of Kyle.
The book of Kyle, where Jesus and Kyle slam some Red Bulls and vodka and get in a fight, and then they make up and cry, and it's all better at the end.
Punch the sheetrock.
Yeah, punch a hole in the sheetrock. So the last definition here is violent death. Death accelerated by human intervention and resulting from a sharp blow, explosion, gunfire, or the like. So yeah, that's unfortunately, I think we're all familiar with some form or another of violent death. It happens,
Yeah, it's pretty terrible when it does. It's traumatic.
It is.
If you're outside of the peripheral of it, it's traumatic. I mean, just hearing about it.
Yeah, it'll shake you. Yeah, that's it. Really, I feel like in the last 6 months, I've been kind of haunted and chased around by different, Jesse Waugh I found out recently, Tracy, and there was yet another, it was a violent death of someone close to me. And so I just been real prayerful and real patient, trying to just not shake it off, not ignore it, but also not be in denial. Say what?
You're talking about the one that happened around the same time as Tracy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just hard, man.
Terrible.
I feel for people. I'm starting to relate more to people who have been exposed to and experienced a lot of death in their life. And, like Mary Shelley, I don't know if you know the backstory on the author of the Frankenstein novel and so many other books. like her life is just a horrific tragedy of death. Like it just like if you go look at her biography, even just a short sheet of it, it's just like, whoa, no wonder her books are so dark and morbid and scary and focused on death, because it was the way that her life went, you know. And she, to me, that she's like a great example of someone who she accepted it and became not just like okay, but became a literary juggernaut because of it, you know. Like there's a book she wrote about like people getting sick and dying in huge waves like a plague, and it takes over the whole world, and the very last scene is like the last man alive gets in a boat and just goes out into the ocean by himself. And it's like, wow. You know, like I listened to it on the LibriVox. Remember when I used to listen to some LibriVox at the shop?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I like some LibriVox.
Yeah, folks, if you never heard of LibriVox.org, it's a great place to get free audiobooks. There's people, lots and thousands of people that just read in anything that's in the public domain. They take turns and they'll read a few chapters, and it's awesome. So if you can't afford like Audible or something, or to buy the things that you want, there's a lot of free stuff that's really good, like all of the Victor Hugo stuff, and all of the, who's the other main guy, Alexandre Dumas, and Cervantes, Don Quixote. We listened to all that stuff. It was good.
Pretty much anything you can think of.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of stuff in the public domain that's really excellent.
And I think anybody can be a reader.
Yeah. So, you can just go choose something that there's like a list of stuff that's being read, and you can just go choose, as long as you got a microphone, because sometimes the sound quality is really bad, and sometimes if people have a heavy accent, like I had a hard time with some of the Asian accents, you know, and not really because their English was bad either, just because the accent's so heavy, it's just hard to understand it, you know.
Yeah.
But that was for free, you can't really complain, you know.
Yeah, that's pretty cool thing. Sometimes they have the same story with different authors or different readers reading it, so you can. Sometimes you just can't deal with somebody's voice as a reader. You know, they just get annoying. Or something.
Yeah. I've got a few books that I'm listening to right now, and there's one guy that like is pretty good, but then sometimes when he gets a little enthusiastic, it's like, it's kind of annoying. And so, and I've got a chauvinist ear, like women narrators and women singers. Like I prefer men singers and men narrators over women almost across the board. And I always laugh at myself, like when I see my bias, you know, like if a woman's reading and she's kind of got a higher nasally voice, it's like, no, I got to turn this book back in. I just can't. I know I won't make it, you know. I won't make it. She'll get into some scene where it has to be intense, and my little critical voice in my head will just be ruining it for me. So it looks like civil death is a little different than I thought. I'm going to read this too, since this is a different aspect of death altogether. It says civil death, it says the word is archaic, which means it's old and probably not really used much. At common law, the loss of rights, such as the rights to vote, make contracts, inherit, and sue, by a person who has been outlawed or convicted of a serious crime, or who is considered to have left the temporal world for the spiritual by entering a monastery. Interesting. Can't really do that anymore, can you?
So you leave the temporal world by entering a monastery?
Yeah, because that's the reason that the Hunchback of Notre Dame, that's the reason the story works the way it does.
What do you mean?
Because the girl is going to be killed for whatever her crime is, and there's like a monk there who's lusting after her and is actually kind of like happy she's going to die because he's kind of an evil monk. And so Quasimodo lives in the church, so he already has sanctuary. He already lives. That's why they call it the sanctuary. You know, like the famous guy from Braveheart. I can't think of his name. William Wallace, right? Like the true history of William Wallace, he really pissed everyone off at him because he followed someone to a church and committed murder inside the church. And they almost like gave up on him altogether. Like he had to really beg for everyone to love him again and to forgive him because it was so serious an offense. Like you don't perpetrate. It's safe. It's home base. It's safe inside the church, no matter what. You can't go in there in God's house, quote unquote, and start being violent or acting, human. And so when you do, then you're desecrating the sacred space, and that's what this is talking about. That you actually are entering into the spiritual world. So Quasimodo snatched the girl up off of the pyre and ran into the church and locked himself in. Well, now they can't do anything. They can't go kick the door down and beat Quasimodo in the church and grab the girl and drag her back out to kill her. Now she's safe.
Yeah.
That's a terrific book. That man is a tragedy writing fool. Alexander Dumas? No, it's the other guy. It's not Dumas. It's Victor Hugo.
Victor Hugo.
Yeah. If you don't want to cry at the end, don't read or listen to any Victor Hugo books because you're just gonna cry. It's so tragic. Like at the end of that book, he makes fun of himself for always writing tragedies. It's really subtle and it's only a couple paragraphs, but he's like ribbing authors who can only make their living and get some bread for their table by writing some stupid tragedy. And I'm like, you're talking about yourself. This is the third tragedy I listened to from you. Oh, Jim, because me and you both love Les Miserables.
Yeah.
Les Miserables is amazing, but there's no happy parts.
Yeah, there's no happy parts.
The prettiest girl sells all of her teeth right out of her head for $1 at a time, and on it goes. Little kids are getting shot standing on the barricade trying to collect fucking rounds.
Yeah. That's one of my favorite musicals, too.
Yeah, I saw it. I had a huge privilege to see it in London, and it was just amazing. Unbelievable. So I was looking here. Let's see what else it says. In one large department of law, the fiction, civil death, is elegantly maintained. A monk or nun cannot acquire or have any proprietary rights. When a man becomes professed in religion, his heir at once inherits from him any land that he has, and, if he has made a will, it takes effect at once as though he were naturally dead. Interesting. Civil death arises from outlawry. I like that word, outlawry. It seems doubtful whether there are any other circumstances to which the phrase is now applicable. So they're saying that really... So yeah, I don't know if that... I haven't heard of those rules being applied to people trying to enter monasteries, but I don't know. I don't really know a lot of people that have run off and become nuns or monks. But saying back in the day that you would actually lay down your legal life and your will would be taken into effect, your kid or whoever was your heir would inherit your land, and you enter in, and now you're just part of God's spiritual world surrounding the duties of the church, but you don't have an actual status in society anymore. That's kind of far out. So the second definition here, it says, in some states, the loss of rights, such as the rights to vote and hold public office by a person serving a life sentence. So that makes sense that you would be civilly dead if you're on death row. 3, the state of a corporation that is formally dissolved or become bankrupt, leaving an estate to be administered for the benefit of shareholders and creditors, also termed legal death. So there you go. Now, if you've got eyes to see and ears to hear, that means something. The third definition of civil death, the state of a corporation that has formally dissolved or become bankrupt, leaving an estate to be administered for the benefit of shareholders and creditors, also termed legal death. Now, if you're a conspiracy wacko nut like me and Jim, then immediately what I think of is your birth certificate.
Yeah.
Because you could actually reject and resign the assignment of that, what they call agency, to you, and then they would consider you legally dead or legally something else. I don't know if they consider you legally dead depending on how you do it, but yeah, that's fascinating. Very, very interesting.
I love the law dictionary.
Oh yeah, I love Black's Law. I've been looking for one at a secondhand store. Eventually, one of these days, I'll just say screw it and actually buy one. Hey,
Yeah,
what happened to my view the picture screen? No. How strange.
Are you losing stuff?
Well, I used to have a thing installed on my Google that if you go to the image search, that now do you remember, Jim? Do you remember when you would go to the image search, and if you clicked on the image, it would just show you the image all by itself, and if you wanted to go to the website, you had to click a different link. But back in the day when you went to image search, if you wanted to see the whole image by itself and big, you just click on it and it would isolate it all by itself on Google.
Yeah.
And then they changed the rules because all of the people were mad that Google was preventing traffic from landing on their sites. So they went to court and sued to get that put in place. And so then somebody wrote a little app that allowed you to use it again, you know. And that's what I had on here. I had a little application, but it's gone. They must have knocked it down again. How annoying. It was here just last week or whatever. See, because now if I click on that skull, it takes me to a Wikipedia entry instead of to the picture.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah, that's stupid. Huh. Wonder what happened.
I try not to use Google if I can help it.
Let me glance at my extensions real quick. Let's put our regular thing in here. So you keep reading what's going on in the chat. Am I missing something exciting?
Well, it's pretty awesome. I mean, it's good stuff. Talking about the drug trade, fentanyl, being a bane on our society.
Yeah, I saw somebody on Twitter sharing links about it, talking about how somebody passed away that they knew, and it was pretty much like them being angry and yelling, like, stop it, you know, stop doing fentanyl, don't be stupid.
Yeah.
And I'm inclined to agree. I'm pretty fascinated by the idea that some people think that the whole fentanyl thing is, that it's traces straight back to the Sackler family, so it's a huge wealthy Jewish family that's underwriting the whole thing, and then B, some people think that it's warfare by the Chinese. They're calling it biological or chemical warfare, or you know, and I find that fascinating. I wonder. I haven't looked into it myself. Have you looked into that at all? Have you heard of that?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, so
pretty new to me. I was thinking it was like a doctor prescribed thing, but it seems like there's a huge black market.
Yeah, there is. That's the really screwed up thing.
Like, how are they getting that stuff? There's got to be pharmaceutical distributors just selling it to drug dealers or something, you know, illegally. I mean, how many times can you steal shipments or, you know, boxes at the factory or whatever?
No, yeah, I figure it's a real racket, right? Like, it's not.
Or there's like prescription farms where there's doctors just, you know, going through the phone book and writing prescriptions to all the names and then filling them in his own pharmacy.
Yeah, well, people do that too, because that used to be a huge similar thing for Medicare when I was involved in the wheelchair industry. It's really messed up the way the government accounts a lot of things. Like anything that was considered a mistake or unclear or confusing as far as the way we as a medical company would document things, the government would account all of that as fraud. You know, so it's like, well, it's not fraud just because we screwed up and we didn't file the paperwork exactly right. That's not the same as us being like, let's get a phone bank and 3 or 4 office spaces and we'll pretend we're in business and we'll bill a whole bunch of money and get the money. I mean, that's fraud. And that's really popular. It was huge in Florida. People would rent out like the crappiest string of office spaces they can, like get a whole floor in the ghetto of office spaces and put in just enough phones for somebody to either have an answer machine working there or someone to be sitting there answering it. And then they'd get medical business started, and they would just bill the bejesus out of Medicare and rake down $20 or $30 million, and then just push it all offshore and close up shop.
Yeah.
So I'm sure what you said isn't that far from similar, you know. Yeah, that's messed up. The image search isn't going to work for me the way it usually does. I was going to try and throw some images of death up here, but it's not going to do it. We get this instead. We get the whole page.
So was it an add-on that wasn't?
It was a browser extension.
They probably nipped that in the bud.
I think you're right. I think that's what happened.
They don't want to be on the hook again for a lawsuit.
Open image in new tab. Okay, so that works. Let's see if that works. There. So there. This is a beautiful picture of death. I don't know if it's on your screen yet, but... Or not of death, but of... Let's see, there's a skull and there's a pipe and there's a beautiful vase full of flowers and there's some other glassware and it looks like an incense burner and a pocket watch or a compass and some coins and a gold chain. Just something that popped up when I was searching for death here. So we made it through definitions. So when I asked you earlier, what's the symbol of death? I would say that the skull and or the skull and crossbones are probably the most prominent, right? I guess I got to give part credit of this to James True too, because last week's show and his fascinating information about bones, I finally found the scripture I was looking for and I sent it to him. It was Joseph, not Jacob. And there's a scripture that talks about Joseph explaining what to do after he dies and giving very specific instructions as to what to do with his bones. And that really went with what we were talking about last week with James's far out artificial intelligence theories of gods and how bones may or may not be involved in how you can break the ancestral lineage or keep it. You know, I'm still pretty fascinated with his whole thing he's doing there. I haven't even gotten James True's 3rd book in the mail yet, and I'm already excited to read his 4th book. And this guy's that's pretty wizardy. Should we trust him? Maybe we shouldn't trust him.
I don't know.
I trust him. I don't think James is fake.
No, I agree.
So what can you think of another other than skull and crossbones? And of course, the skull and crossbones is also the symbol for skull and bones, and they seem pretty fascinated and obsessed with death. Like they seem willing to act in the capacity of being murderers, which is not good, you know.
No.
I mean, I'm not saying I could prove it, but it's certainly widely speculated that they're involved in a variety of murder and other death.
It's pretty funny that, you know, their number is 322.
Yeah.
And the number, the caliber of bullets that NATO uses is 233.
Yeah.
223, which is 322 backwards. So, I mean, it's kind of an odd size, an oddball size. You know, why not just make it 25?
Why not make it 222?
222.
Right? Why has it got to be 223? Why?
Yeah.
Because you're talking down to really small amounts at that point, like really small.
There's just a little nod, just a little hidden nod to the skull and bones.
Yeah, I used to always just kind of ignore that stuff when I was a lot younger, but now I look at I at least consider the symbolism in everything, you know. Like even your costume, as soon as I saw it, it made me think like, oh, the wolf pretending to be grandma. Like it's not just a kid's story about a sneaky wolf. Like there is deep, impenetrable meaning behind this whole fairy tale. We could rip it. We could have a whole show just on Little Red Riding Hood and not get to the bottom of it by any means. So yeah, I don't think there's any chance that 223 is like, oh, that's just a weird coincidence. That just happened to be the size the machines were calibrated to, Jim, when they got popular, so they just kept making them or whatever, you know. Like that's not the case.
Are you anybody out there a Trekkie, Star Trek fan?
Oh, I'm sure somebody has got to be I know at least one of our listeners is. I'm not going to say their name, but I saw them sitting in a photograph one time. They were sitting at the helm, like where Janeway would sit.
Nice. Yeah, there's a town called Riverside, Iowa, and the town, you know, the sign at the when you enter the town says Riverside, Iowa, future birthplace of Captain James T. Kirk, and apparently he is going to be born on March 22nd, 2228. So his birthday is 322 with 3 in the year 2228, which is 3 2s and an 8. So there's 2. There's 322 and then there's 3 2s.
Yeah. Oh man, that reminds me, you know, so I turned 44 yesterday, right? And I kind of had some trouble sleeping last night. And I get up in the middle of the night and I look at my clock and it's 4:44, you know? And then, and I remembered like an hour or more earlier in the very middle of the night, I'd barely woken up, and you know how you push the button on your phone to see what time it is, but then it turns the bright light on? Because you're not thinking about it, you know, like my phone usually is cool. It's got the little display on the screen, but if it doesn't, you have to push that button, and I wasn't thinking about it. I usually turn my phone way down if I'm going to have it in the bed with me, and I didn't, and it was 333. So later I remembered like, oh, that's so weird that it was 333 444 the day after my 44th birthday. And then when I came to work today, it was 11:11 the first time I looked at the clock, and then 12:22, and then the last time I looked before I was done for the day was 2:22. So it happened all day to me today. I mean, I know that's kind of off topic, but it's not at the same time.
No, I agree. Those little coincidences, I guess.
Well, and then if you look it up, people are tripping all over the internet about what it means, right? You know, like there's all these, they call it angel numbers and all of this stuff. And of course, I look at it and study. I'm pretty good with numerology anymore, and I don't find a whole lot of reasonableness in the angel number stuff, but there are some other places you could land with the gematria and the numerology and other people referencing numbers that that makes me curious, Jim. Let's see, I should have a bookmark here, and we can look up 322 and see.
You know how there's like creepy stuff that happens 3:30 in the morning? Apparently it's like the devil's number or something.
Yeah 3:30 is called the witching hour.
Witching hour. Yeah. It is kind of an odd time.
So let's see if I can find that. I had a number, like a reference to it. It was from Tracy, or we found it because I remember on one of the shows when we read the numerology out of the book, she had Crowley 777, so she read the number out of there too, and it was really good. And so then after that, somebody in the chat or somebody, hey, yeah, that's the one. Well, you should look. Does it say 322 in there?
I will look. It's kind of
Yeah, I thought we traded. I traded you a valuable item. If you want to give up on that trade, I'll just keep the original.
Well, I'll bring it. I'll bring it to you. I had been meaning to, but I kept forgetting.
I'm just picking on you, man. I still want the trade. We already made the trade. I'm not going back on it. It's a joke.
I'm just gonna read it first. Yeah, no, I'm just kidding. It's kind of hard to read a reference book.
It is. If you can't find it quick and we end up stuttering, it's okay. Because I was doing the same thing here. I was trying to find. I thought I saved it under conspiracy. I do sometimes go and clean up my bookmarks. I highly recommend people get in the habit and the practice of actually like going back to your bookmarks and testing them and seeing if they still follow to the right places, and if they don't, then delete them and reorganize them into folders, because it's really useful. I mean, I'm sure lots of people are like me. They just bookmark tons and tons of stuff, and then they almost never look, and then when they do want to look, they can't find anything they're looking for because it's so disorganized. So I kind of got over that when I was younger, but I swear it's only like once a year that I'm finally like, okay, I'll organize my bookmarks. And then I'm so happy when they're organized. I guess normal people, I hear that, let me know if you know anybody that's like this, but I hear that normal people, they like make the folders specifically up front, and they make a new one if they don't have one for that category, and then every time they save something, they go through every step to put it in the right place. Is that true, Jim? Do people do that?
That's crazy talk. Supposed to save everything to the desktop, and then when your desktop is too cluttery to do anything, you just throw it all away.
Yeah, you let the computer crash and lose everything, and you sit and have a good cry and start over and do it again.
Yeah, I've got a bunch of folders on my desktop that say saved desktop stuff and then the date.
Yeah.
Oh,
I know. We share a computer. Believe me, I know. As frustrating as it is sometimes at the shop, I'd be very careful not to just start clicking and closing and rearranging. It's like I just go find my own little area and work in that, and then if it's okay for me, I'll close my own little area so that it's not crowding your area, because you've got the really fun job of being something like like you're what I would call an inside sales rep, but not really. But it's kind of the same responsibility, I'm going to get back to everybody with this information, and we'll see what happens next. Well, like if the computer crashes, we could have some trouble. Yeah, I don't see it. I'll find it and post it later or something. But I found this website. Somebody shared it with us, and it has everything, like every single number ever. And they've got all, like somebody made a comprehensive reference work for all of the numbers, so that if you're looking for specifics on a number, like it's all there. Like you look up 666 and it's like 50 pages of reference work all to that number, So I need to go find it again somewhere. But I'm not going to search right now.
I'm really not sure how to use this book.
Yeah, it's all right, man. It's a book of correspondences, and it's a B. It's hard. It's not easy.
Yeah. It's like a reference.
Yeah, it really is. That's why I was willing to trade, because that's the only Crowley book I consider of any value to me, really, Like, and even that, I take it all with a grain of salt. If I'm going to use it, I would probably go find 2 more people that made their own lists of correspondences and compare to his. And then if I like theirs better, or they seem more reliable, choose him and still throw Crowley out, because I just don't trust him. I have very little respect or regard for the man. He's really done a terrific amount of evil in the world.
Yeah.
There it is. All right. I mean, I know a lot of people think that it was all for show, but I don't. I think he was transgressing in the flesh to the maximum in an attempt to to draw down the sky, man. He was trying to crash this place by going against everything that's wholesome, good, and normal. And I don't think he was exaggerating or joking. I don't think it was a show. I think I think the true fruit of his labor was being a completely degenerate, drug-addicted dope fiend, probably with venereal disease, dying in squalor with no happiness and no money. Like, that's the outcome, the sky doesn't fall down and you get to be Mithras in a new heaven. You just ruin your life. You go mad,
Yeah.
And I don't know. I know people that do that, and I kind of feel bad for them, but I don't feel bad for a guy like that who knows. He knows what he was doing. That's really stupid. Oh, kratom's gross. Did I say that out loud? Damn it.
Yeah, bitter kratom.
Usually I have the YouTube window open so I can spy on the chat, and now I don't, so now I feel left out. Poor Sean. Doesn't know what's happening in the chat. So, Jim, when I asked you what gods do you associate with death, do you remember what you said?
Kali.
Yeah.
Exactly. Kali. Kali?
Yeah, Kali. I usually hear it pronounced Kali. And let's see. A pretty traditional rendition here. Let's see if this one will open up for us in its own tab or not here.
If you want to talk to me on the phone, just give me a Kali.
Just give me a Kali. So I guess we can just read this. So if people don't know, Kali is
Kalima.
Kalika also, or Shayama. I didn't know those names. So Kali, Kalika, Shayama is a Hindu goddess. Kali is one of the 10 Mahavidyas, a list which combines Sakta and Buddhist goddesses. Interesting, okay. Kali's earliest appearance is that of a destroyer of evil forces. So as bad as her reputation is typically, apparently she's a destroyer of evil forces. She's the most powerful form of Shakti. She's the goddess of one of the 4 subcategories of the Kula Magara or Marga. Kula Marga. I don't really know this stuff very well, so you'll have to forgive my butchering of the words. It's a category, so Kuli Marga is a category of tantric Saivism. Over time, she's been worshipped by devotional movements and tantric sects, variously as the Divine Mother, Mother of the Universe, Adi Shakti, or Adi Parashakti. Shakta Hindu and tantric sects additionally worship her as the ultimate reality or Brahman. They're not giving her any credit as being death here. That's kind of strange. I don't really trust Wikipedia anyway. But
is dancing around with skull necklace.
I mean, usually I don't understand why they would write it like this. They make it sound like she's this. They make her sound almost benevolent and beneficent, which I'm not saying that she can't be, but that's her reputation is dualistic, the goddess of life and death, But usually the goddess of death and life is the way I think of it. Like, you don't get the good part of the story. I went to in Mexico. I went to this huge sculpture garden upstairs. I was there with some girls, and they're all shopping, and it was kind of a Hindu-y Indian shop. And I noticed upstairs there was this huge sculpture garden. There was all these idols and sculptures of the Buddha and all these other gods. What's the Ganesh, Buddha? And there was more than that, but so because the girls were still shopping, I started really looking, and there was big ones and small ones, and just, you know how it is sometimes, the place is just packed. So there's little corners and stuff hidden behind stuff, and it's not stacked up like a warehouse, but it's really overstocked, And so I walked around up there for like a half an hour waiting for the girls, looking for any image of Kali anywhere, and there was not one. Because I assumed there wouldn't be, because it's pretty rare in my experience to find people venerating the goddess Kali, because she's so powerful and polarizing.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is funny. Listen to this, Jim. Kali is often portrayed standing or dancing on her consort, the Hindu god Shiva, who lies calm and prostrate beneath her. Kali is worshipped by Hindus throughout India. I'm going to go ahead and see if I can grow this picture up here now. So here's the picture. The description I just read really doesn't go with this picture very well. She's got her tongue sticking out like so many Miley Cyrus videos. She's got a severed head, and she's draining the blood of the head into a bowl. She has multiple arms, and one of the arms is holding the shimtar that apparently was used to sever the head. The dead body is laying there on the ground. She's standing with her foot in the middle of Shiva's chest. She's got a necklace made of more heads and a belt made of human arms. I'm finding fault, pretty severe fault here with their description of Kali there.
Don't they say that Kali dances?
Yeah, this is the dance. I mean, that's.
Do you think she twerks?
It's a great question. I'm afraid to type that into Google because I don't want Rule 34 to pop up on me. I'm going to go to the regular, because that's the first god that popped into my head too. I mean, like I said, the only other one that, like gods of death, like I think of Kronos, I think of Saturn. Because that's the traditional image of death, is the hooded man, old man time is coming to get you. He'll wait you out, and that's just the way it is.
Krista had suggested Anubis, which is another one I thought of.
Yeah, that's true. Anubis.
Think of Anubis, he's more like the underworld, or
Okay, so look at here's a perfect example live during our episode here of Picture Show. We have a chance to I'm gonna have to turn my ad blocker off here to get to this page, but this page looks better. Pause on this site. Go ahead. Now let's refresh and see. But yeah, so Wikipedia, blah blah blah, saying all these wonderful, nice things, and don't get me wrong, if people want to worship Kali, that's their business. But here, by Mark Cartwright, published in June 2013, Kali is the Hindu goddess or Devi of death, time, and doomsday, and is often associated with sexuality and violence, but is also considered a strong mother figure and symbolic of motherly love. Now that's a lot more accurate in my past experience, right? Whereas what the hell's with Wikipedia? I mean, I guess we all know, but it's just so annoying when even benign, like middle-of-the-road things, I don't expect them to say nice things about Eustace Mullins or something on Wikipedia, but they could at least get Kali right, like Mark Cartwright did here. If we weren't actually educated and experienced, then we might think, oh yeah, death, Kali, and go look at Wikipedia and be like, oh, I guess we were wrong. When we weren't wrong,
The stream's kind of hanging up on me right now.
Are we getting complaints in the chat too, or not?
No. Maybe it's just me.
Maybe I'll kill some tabs just to be safe here. Because I would really like the stream to continue since we succeeded. We got it rolling. Like I said, I can't really see the chat. I mean, I can glance at my phone, but I don't like to try and look at two things at once, so.
Could be that I need to reload it. Maybe I'll try that.
Yeah, it looks like other people are saying it's hanging too, huh? Sorry, folks. It seems like my internet My internet's usually okay. It's not as good as what we got over there at Jim's. Maybe we need to start. Maybe we need to start just having you fire it off because you've got the more sophisticated setup.
Well, we'll have to do something.
Because I really hate having it hang and not, not have people be able to. Interruption. We can't be putting up with interruptions.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, it says down here farther, Kali's name derives from the Sanskrit meaning she who is black or she who is death. But she's also known as Chaturbua Kali, Chinnamasta or Kaushika as an embodiment of time. Kali devours all things. She is irresistibly attractive to mortals and gods and can also represent, particularly in later traditions, the benevolence of a mother goddess. So it sounds like they kind of hung the I'm a good goddess title on her later, according to this guy. Because it almost sounds like she's Kronos here. Wouldn't you say? She devours. She's the embodiment of time and devours all things. And she does have the Shimtar in her hand too. She's harvesting heads instead of wheat. So that's interesting. And let's take a look at Anubis here. Maybe we'll try it on this site.
Is it Kali that's at the statue at CERN? Is that Kali?
No, that's Shiva.
Okay.
But Shiva is also the destroyer.
Is Shiva just the other side of that dance? Is it the dance?
Yeah, I mean, he's in that picture that's so famous of her. He's laying there on the ground with the cobra wrapped around his wrist, and she's standing in the middle of his chest. So she's subdued him, and she's got one arm holding the sword, one arm holding the severed head over blood that she's capturing, and he's either unconscious or just laying there, So Anubis. Let's go ahead and click on him. And maybe I'll adjust this so that everyone can see. My little dog gets so jealous, Jim. He's ruining the finish on the door to this office.
Well, you can let him in.
No, he'll just jump up in my lap and he won't stop. And he won't stop. He just keeps jumping up. And then he'll get right here on the desk. And then he'll start to climb up and look around like there's people. I can hear him. And he won't stop. He can feel the energy of the whole thing. It's not just that he can hear you. He's like, something's happening, So, at Krista's recommendation, and of course we did discuss this, the definition: Anubis is the Egyptian god of mummification and the afterlife, as well as the patron god of lost souls and the helpless. So that brings us to an interesting point. We're going to have to come back to that, because this is before we finish, don't let me finish up the night without addressing the idea of afterlife, of going farther into reincarnation, talking about heaven and hell, talking about limbo. We gotta badminton this stuff around a little bit. But so, Anubis is supposed to help you if you're a lost soul. Sorry?
The reviews on Afterlife are mixed.
Yeah, they really are. Like 3.5 stars on Afterlife.
Really loved it. I had a great view.
I think the reviews are so mixed because so many people think it's not real, so they go and skew all the numbers.
Yeah.
They log into their Amazon account and they're like, Afterlife is fake, and it just messes everything up when you can't get a real sample that way,
Like, it's too hot.
So, Anubis is one of the oldest gods of Egypt, who most likely Developed from the earlier and much older jackal god, Wepwawet, with whom he's often confused. Anubis' image is seen on royal tombs from the first dynasty of Egypt, but it is certain he had already developed a cult following prior to this period in order to be invoked on the tomb's wall for protection. He's thought to have developed in response to wild dogs and jackals digging up newly buried corpses at some point in the pre-Dynastic period in Egypt. I'd never heard that before. Had you ever heard that?
Which part?
It says some people think that Anubis was created as a response to dogs actually digging up corpses.
Huh.
I'd never heard that before. That seems off to me, but I mean, that's just because I overthink everything, so it can't be that simple that they saw dogs digging up bodies and made a god. That doesn't...
It's entirely possible that there were genetic creations back in the day that were dog-headed men, or
Yeah, we listened to remember we listened to a 15-minute clip about it.
Yeah, that was excellent. Whose video was that?
Oh, I would have to go look in my YouTube history.
I think you sent me a link. I'll see if I have.
Yeah, because it was great. Long story short, it looked like there really was dog-headed people, and that they couldn't talk, but that they communicated with signs and symbols, and that some of the Christian crusaders were writing back to their bishops and being like, hey, are we supposed to preach to these guys and baptize them or not? Because they're kind of human-dog hybrids. And to me, that's a really funny...
Human-dog hybrids.
Well, it makes me imagine me and you, and I'm like, dude, we can run our numbers up. Let's convert all these dogs. And you're like, we can't do that, man. That's not right. They're not human. And I'm like, well, they're human enough.
They piss on the carpet.
And so then you're like, before you start baptizing these dog things, please let me just write to the bishop. Let me write to the archbishop and see what we get back in the letter. I don't want to damn ourselves to hell trying to save these dog men.
It was Static in the Attic.
Oh, that's right. Static in the Attic. And there was a fancy name for those guys.
Cynocephaly. Race of dog-headed people known for 2,000 years.
Yeah.
The title of it. Cynocephaly, which I guess cyno must be Latin for domesticated dog. And cephaly is head, right?
Yeah.
I thought Lucine was dog. Maybe that's wolf. That was a pretty interesting video.
Yeah, it was very good. See, did I send it to you on Twitter or just text message?
Text.
If you drop it into Twitter, I'll copy paste it into. Oh, I can't. I don't have the description open. I forgot. I don't.
Oh, and also if you later on, if you could put some links to your interview with Jesse Waugh.
Yeah, when we're all done, I'll drop. Let me write some notes here. So dog heads.
So the word cynocephaly is taken through Latin from the Greek word kynocephaly.
Waugh interview. Oh, if you're listening right now, folks, please go and look at the links and sign up if you haven't signed up for our email list. We're going to start sending weekly reminders in email here pretty soon. And there's going to be a lot of extra information in the emails. You're going to get special prizes and treats and extra stuff from us if you're on the email list that you're probably not going to really get anywhere else. But the main thing is we don't really trust YouTube anymore to do a very good job of notifying people. We see all the time that hey, I didn't get a notification, and I get private messages during the show often hey, where's the link? Can you help me out? And I don't mind sending it, but if we can eventually get to where the email reminder is our one reliable way to make sure everybody's getting notified if they're on the list, it's that plus secret special stuff. So if you want secret special stuff from Picture Show, go to the links in the description and add your best email in there, and then when it all starts rolling, you'll get things that nobody else is going to get. But
it's because we talk about Foucault.
Yeah.
And poop is not food and dancing Israelis. That's why YouTube drops all the show announcements.
Yeah, that's why the stream's lagging like hell. So there were some more information here about Anubis. So it says in earlier times, Anubis was considered the son of Ra and Hesat, associated with Hathor. But after his assimilation into the Osiris myth, he was held to be the son of Osiris and his sister-in-law, Nephthys. So that's kind of weird, isn't it? That you get a new kingdom and they start shuffling gods around. Like, no, we're really more focused on Osiris now, so Anubis can't be Ra's kid anymore. We're going to have him be Osiris's kid. So would that be like civil death? Does the original Anubis suffer civil death and then they resurrect him as a new Anubis?
Yeah, it's because after New Anubis's sex tape came out, he got way more popular.
Now, to me, when I just said that, I thought of Anubis. So now you're really getting some far out gods starting to develop. The god Anu is like the oldest god we know of. So Anubis. Okay, I can't let my brain go that way. I'm gonna get lost in a reverie of imaginings. So he's the earliest god depicted on the tomb walls, invoked for protection of the dead, and usually shown tending to the corpse of the king, presiding over mummification and funerals, or standing with Osiris, Thoth, or other gods at the weighing of the heart of the soul in the hall of truth in the afterlife. Now Jim can tell us about that because he studied the Egyptian Book of the Dead, at least more than I have. So can you tell us? Is it? Yeah. So there it is. There's the book in question. So is that in there, Jim? Did they describe weighing? Because it's like you weigh your heart versus a feather, and if it weighs more, then you don't make it or something, right? And if it weighs even or less, then you make it into the afterlife.
Yeah, and if you don't make it, your soul is obliterated, I think.
In Egyptian cosmology, you perish. It's like eternal separation from creation.
Yeah, you're destroyed. And it's I think what it used to be was that you'd have to bring your tribute down and they would weigh it. And that would buy you into heaven. But
oh yeah, it used to be like the Caesar popes, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I know the Caesar popes were later, but the same idea. Like, you need to bring some stuff. And it should be some nice stuff.
And I think Osiris changed it. Was it Osiris?
I think you're right, yeah.
Yeah, he changed it. So you weigh your heart. Let me see if I can find it here.
So, a popular image of Anubis is the standing or kneeling man with the jackal's head, holding the golden scales on which the heart of the soul was weighed against the white feather of truth. His daughter Quebhet, also known as Kabashe, who brings cool water to the souls of the dead in the hall of truth and comforts the newly deceased. Anubis association with Nephthys, known as friend of the dead, and Quebeth emphasizes his long-standing role as protector of the dead and a guide for souls in the afterlife.
Yeah, I think here it is.
Yeah, that's almost the identical image I have up on the screen here if I scroll back. Awesome. Let's see, I'm going to scroll up one more here. Well, I'm gonna switch this. Keep that up there for just a second. I'm gonna switch it over. So go ahead. Yeah, that way it makes the screen bigger. You have a beautiful copy of the Book of the Dead. I remember sitting there looking at that for a while back at your other house.
It's got photographs of the The photographs? Actually, I think they might be drawings of the hieroglyphics, and then they have it's translated on the side in English.
Oh, nice. So it's got all of the text there.
Yeah. It's spell 30B, the judgment of the dead. The heart of the dead man is weighed in the scales of the balance against the feather of righteousness. O my heart, which I had from my mother, O my heart, which I had from my mother, O my heart of my different ages, do not stand up as a witness against me. Do not be opposed to me in the tribunal. Do not be hostile to me in the presence of the keeper of the balance, for you are my ka, which was in my body, the protector who made my members hale. Go forth to the happy place where to we speed. Do not make my name stink to the entourage who make men. Do not tell lies about me in the presence of the God. It is indeed well that you should hear. Thus says Thoth, judge of truth, to the great Ened, which is in the presence of Osiris. Hear this word of very truth. I have judged the heart of the deceased, and his soul stands as a witness for him. His deeds are righteous in the great balance.
That's what we want to hear, is that part.
And no sin has been found in him. He did not diminish the offerings in the temples. He did not destroy what had been made. He did not go about with a deceitful speech while he was on earth. And it kind of keeps going.
Yeah, no, I mean, if you want to, you can read more, but we definitely get the gist of it, and I always find it fascinating when I read that book, how similar it sounds to me to Old Testament scripture, Bible scripture. It always seems kind of similar to me, you know? Like the idea of being righteous and good and true still rings through that, you know? Like, he didn't rob the temple, he wasn't a jerk, he wasn't mouthing off, you know?
Yeah. He was honest. He didn't destroy what had been made. Thus says the great the word is Ennead, and Ennead. Thus says the great Ennead to Thoth, who is in Hermopolis. This utterance of yours is true. The vindicated Osiris En is straightforward. He has no sin. There is no accusation against him before us. Ammit shall not be permitted to have power over him. Let there be given to him offerings which are issued in the presence of Osiris, and may a grant of land be established in the field of offerings as for the followers of Horus. Thus says Horus, son of Isis, I have come to you, O Wenifer, and I bring En to you. His heart is true, having gone forth from the balance, and he has not sinned against any god or goddess. Thoth judged him in writing, which has been told to the Ennead, and Mat, the great, has witnessed. Let there be given to him bread and beer, which have been issued in the presence of Osiris, and he will be forever like the followers of Horus. Thus says En, here I am in your presence, O Lord of the West. There is no wrongdoing in my body. I have not willingly told lies. There has been no second fault. Grant that I may be like the favored ones who are in your suite. O Osiris, one greatly favored by the good God, one loved by the Lord of the two lands, and vindicated before Osiris.
This is awesome. So I got another quote here in reference to Anubis. I always call him Anubis, but I think it's probably Anubis is more correct. I don't know for sure, though. So it says, he was especially concerned with controlling the impulses of those who sought to sow disorder or align themselves with chaos. So that goes with what you were saying, right? Like, he was saying good things like they weren't screwing up, they weren't being evil, they weren't sowing discord as they sow. So someone quoted here, a story recorded in the first millennium BCE tells how the wicked god Set disguised himself as a leopard to approach the body of Osiris. He was seized by Anubis and branded all over with a hot iron. This, according to Egyptian myth, is how the leopard got its spots. I didn't know that. Now check this out, Jim. Anubis then flayed Set and wore his bloody skin as a warning to evildoers.
Say that again.
So first it says that the reason a leopard has his spots is because Set was trying to hide as a leopard, and Anubis branded him all over his body with a hot iron, and that's how leopards got their spots. And then Anubis flayed Set and wore his bloody skin as a warning to evildoers.
Wow.
So by this era, Anubis was said to command an army of demon messengers who inflicted suffering and death. So it's definitely accurate to include him in our list of who are the gods of death, if in this era he's actually wearing Set's skin as a coat, as a warning, and sending out an army of demons to inflict suffering and death. We found him. Death.
Yeah, it sounds like he'd be right up there with Freddy Krueger and with Jason and the other guy.
Yeah. Egyptian Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah.
So I was glancing through here. This is too long. I don't think I want to read the whole thing. But yeah, that's fascinating. We learned tonight on Picture Show, which one? 63?
63.
How the leopard got his spots. And now we also know why the leopard can't change his spots.
Yeah.
Because they say they've always said that to us, right? Like, well, the leopard doesn't change his spots. Well, it's because Anubis branded him with a hot iron. So those aren't just spots, they're like burns, like horrible scars.
That's why leopard spots never go out of style. Even if they do go out of style, they're still in style.
Yeah. Set. We could do a whole show on Set, that jerk. Set's a jerk. Like, I know people always, like, they put Set and Loki together, but to me, Loki at least, like, Loki's a jerk, but it's like he almost can't resist being a jerk, and so he most of the time he's bored and he wants to be a good guy, but then he gets a wild hair and goes and be's a jerk, and then he comes kicking around in the dust like, I'm sorry, Thor, I'm a jerk. But I don't ever get that when I read about Set. It's like, Set's like literally the devil. That's the way I always see Set as not, I know they kind of equate Loki the same.
Satan, I'd say.
Yeah, exactly. He's the true adversary.
Yeah, he's out in the desert, hanging out with jackals and being rough.
Now that's interesting. It's saying Set, god of death. I just typed in Set to see what I would get. So I'm going to read just here we are on Wikipedia. I don't know about Wikipedia. I should have just stayed on that page I was on. Ancient EU, I think that was it. Let's see. Let's compare Set to Anubis since they're, looks like they got a little death rivalry going. So if you had to think of one person in United States history that represented death off the top of your head, who would it be, Jim? What comes to mind when I say history of the United States and death? What do you think of?
History of the United States and death. I want to say Abraham Lincoln.
Wow.
First.
Why Lincoln? Because the Civil War was so bloody?
Yeah, Civil War, there's Ford's Theater. He was wearing black.
Yeah, I didn't think about that he actually died in a horrible death. Allegedly. Some people think that was another hoax, right?
He was incredibly depressed for his whole life because who knows why. And his son died of some kind of sickness and messed everything up.
Yeah, that's weird. It said Set, god of death. So this here says Set, also known as Seth, and Sutek was the Egyptian god of war, chaos, and storms. So yeah, I didn't think so. I didn't remember Set ever being affiliated directly with death like Anubis was. So, and to give my answer too, when I asked the question out loud, my brain said Henry Kissinger. Yeah, that's.
Well, Set did kill God. He killed his brother Osiris. At least initially, and then later cut him up into 14 pieces, and then the fish ate his phallus, as we remember.
Yeah. Well, if people have never listened to William Cooper's Mystery Babylon series, I highly recommend it because he rolls over all of this in chronological order, and it's just amazing. I wouldn't know it as well as I do, which isn't very good anymore. I don't really study this stuff as much as I used to. Kind of study it to memorize, like keep it in your mind,
Yeah. Have you ever seen that movie, Gods of Egypt?
Yeah, I love it. It's really good with the circle flat Earth and everything.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like super correct.
No, it's still a movie, but it's got quite a bit of accuracy yet.
And they kind of added a big tower into the story, sort of a mixed Babylon in with the Egyptian stuff.
Yeah. And that's kind of biblical too, Egypt and Babylon in the Bible are both considered symbols of the evil temporal world. The temptation of sin and the selfishness of the will to power. Egypt, Babylon, and Sodom and Gomorrah are all similar symbols, So
Yeah.
for the record, folks, the Ancient History Encyclopedia appears to be a slightly better reference than Wikipedia, who doesn't even identify the goddess Kali as the goddess of death. They make her sound like a sweet grandma. You want to just have her put the head down and take off her arm belt so you can sit on her lap. WTF. So is there any other gods of death? I mean, we could look up Kronos and Saturn, but I don't think we need to because we covered it so much with Tracy. Like, that was one of Tracy's big kicks.
I don't know if they're necessarily gods, but there's, the Black Madonna.
Yeah.
The what is it? That Mexican death religion. What is
Oh
that
yeah,
called?
I mean, like the Mexican drug cartels, they literally worship the devil as death.
Yeah.
It's Santa Muerte, Saint Death.
Saint Death. Yeah, I remember seeing that in Breaking Bad. There was these two cousins, or they were like twin brothers, and they were like hitmen, and they go up to everybody's crawling on their elbows and their knees up to this death temple.
Yeah.
And they all put they'll climb up there and they put a picture of Heisenberg in there because they want to kill him.
Oh, so they bring Heisenberg's picture to the altar of death as the symbol of the sacrifice they want to make.
Yeah, and then they sneak into the United States and try to kill him immediately after that.
And of course it doesn't work because he's Heisenberg.
Yeah, and that would have ended the series too abruptly, I would assume.
There, how's that? Was that a fast enough costume change?
Oh wow. Nice.
Don't mess with my myth!
it's a Heisenberg hat.
Yeah.
Nice.
This is my magic hat. And now for everyone that had their doubts and they weren't sure, they know for sure Sean's a black hat. There it is. He admitted it on the death stream.
On the death stream.
I represent myself as a black hat to hide the fact that I'm a white hat. That makes sense, right?
Yeah.
See, I was looking for a good description of Santa Muerte.
Santa Muerte.
I remember reading this article where the Catholic Church was trying to get a lot more exorcists in a big hurry because they didn't have enough, and how they were like complaining about everybody down in Mexico and South America worshiping Saint Death, and how the Death definitely wasn't a canonized Catholic saint, and that they certainly were not approved to worship Death and to venerate Death. And I thought, this is really weird.
Yeah, it was a few years back. There was like a huge rash of possessions in like South America and the Latin countries, or people were being possessed all over the place.
Yeah. I just landed on an article. Check this out. We won't read the whole thing, but Santa Muerte, the saint of death that the Vatican tried to shut down. It was just the top link after Wikipedia. You know, like I'm now gonna avoid Wikipedia even more than I usually do because they dissed me, man. I'm trying to tell our friends here, our audience, and whoever else is tuning in about Kali, and we're getting like pancakes and syrup. That's some nonsense. I'm really offended, in case you can't tell.
You got pancakes and syrup?
Well, to me, that's what, we're looking for blood and severed heads, and instead we get pancakes and butter and syrup.
Yeah.
Kali with her apron on, like, come in, get some powder on your hands so the dough doesn't stick. Like, no.
Cookies baking.
That's not right, yeah. I know what kind of cakes Kali's baking. I don't want none.
I think Kali's been baking or streaming to a freeze because it's kind of frozen.
Oh no! Again?
Frozen.
I guess this is what. Yeah. Well, yeah. Thanks for looking after it, because I can't really look. I don't have a way to check it. Let's see what happens if I push play.
That makes sense, right?
Weird. Yeah. Hear that?
Turn the volume up a bit.
For a good description of Santa Muerte.
So I turn this down. It looks like it's still. Maybe we're just getting audio and our video is frozen.
Are you getting audio?
Yeah, I was getting audio, but it looks like the video's frozen. Oh, it's jumping around there. Okay, I'm going to close it on my phone so that I'm not pulling from the... It might be my internet, so I just closed it on my phone. Is it? You have a way to check it and make sure? Because, I can try and pause it again like I did before, if we need to.
Mine is frozen until I turn the volume up, and then it... It was a few years back.
Yeah, that's great. That was a great effect.
People were being possessed all over the place.
Yeah, that's it. But Santa Muerte, the saint of death that the Vatican tried to shut down.
Well, cool. We'll continue from where I just left off. It says her worshippers vary from those pushed to the fringes of society to occultists, drug lords, and prisoners. And the Santa Muerte has garnered more followers in the past decade than any religion before it. Uh-oh.
Yeah. Wow. Must be a successful deal then, I guess.
Well, okay, so there's a great interview I started to listen to on Jason Horsley's Limitless podcast, where he's interviewing a man who wrote a book or made a movie or both about, they call it the Narcos Satanicos. And it's the Mexican drug cults openly worshiping the devil and dealing the hardest of drugs. And it's a mind-blowing trip, man. They've got saints. It's like they're pretty much accurate what you were describing from Breaking Bad. That it's very real. And they're doing blood sacrifices and all kinds of rituals, and they've got saints, and they're making offerings. And they believe that they can make themselves bulletproof and impervious to death. And I remember talking to one young Mexican guy who was considering converting to Christianity. This was quite a few years ago, and he was really scared because he had worshipped death and made offerings at the altar in the jailhouses and in the trap houses. And I remember encouraging him anyway, like, well, that I understand your concern, but God conquers all is the rule. So, you just give all that up and trust Jesus, and then you should be better off than you were. Says here, Catholics who pray to Santa Muerte find it easy to reconcile their two belief systems. And there's like a really weird, like trans looking Jesus or something. And right next to it, like death wearing a white hood. A really strange picture. It looks like Jesus dressed as a Boy Scout with lipstick on or something and long hair. It's really weird.
Is that in the in your search there for?
Well, it's on a website called allthatisinteresting.com, and I chose this entry because it wasn't Wikipedia, and it referenced what we were already talking about, is that the Catholic Church is like, hey, we need you to just worship Jesus and venerate Mary and not worship death.
Is that Jesus with a mustache?
I guess. I don't know. Isn't that a weird picture?
Never seen a Jesus with a mustache.
So here we're getting a more detail here. Santa Muerte, the folkish female deity of Mexican-American culture, has gone from relative anonymity to being at the center of the fastest-growing religious movement in the world. Her followers, from drug lords and prisoners to hardworking families, often call her Santissima Muerte, Most Holy Death. The highest annals of the Catholic Church, the Vatican itself, has condemned Santa Muerte as satanic. But this hasn't stopped her worshippers from every corner of the earth bowing at her altar. And so the history is, even though she's only become a popular figure in the last 10 to 15 years, Santa Muerte, literally translated Saint Death, has been around for centuries. Andrew Chestnut, the Bishop Walter F. Sullivan Chair in the Catholic Studies at Virginia Commonwealth University, relay that references to Santa Muerte began as early as colonial Spain. So that's interesting. That's pretty far back. The Spaniards sought to turn the Aztecs and Mayans over to Catholicism. They introduced them to the female Grim Reaper figures as representation of death. But these native cultures already had death deities. Well, of course the Mayans had death deities. So before the arrival of the Spanish conquistadors, the Aztecs who inhabited the area that's now central Mexico worshipped Mixcoatl, the Lady of the Dead. So that's interesting. They just tried to replace their new female death god with the old female death god. Mictecaheltl, I can't say it. It's like Quetzalcoatl, only worse. Micteachatl. I'm giving up. We're just going to call her Mitch.
There you go.
So this pre-Columbian death goddess ruled over the underworld and was often depicted as partial skeleton or having a skull for a head. So it's like it was already a pretty similar goddess, it sounds like. And there's a oh no, this is just another article. I don't know, that's a pretty good picture there. A skull with a hood with some cigarettes shoved in its teeth. Big smiling skull. So that's interesting. Yeah. This Saint Death is often portrayed with a scythe, so maybe it's a little closer to old Kronos than most of us think.
Were you telling me a story about somebody that it was a white guy that got initiated into Santa Muerte? It was like the first white guy because he shared a name with.
Yeah, his name was Mitch. Yeah, it was in that. It was in that interview with. I'm gonna write that down here too. Maybe I'll drop that Horsley interview in the description along with the Dog's Head info and the Jesse Waugh interview. So Narcos Satanicos. Yeah, so that guy that made the movie and/or wrote about the going down there and studying this. And once again, it's a story of people getting so close to the evil that they're trying to document. The guy was like, I didn't get directly involved, but I knew that really bad shit was happening around me, and so I got out of it. You know, one more story of like, I'm fascinated by this, I want to check it out. You go down there and try and document it and understand it, and you almost get drawn right into the Mexican satanic drug cult, you know, just from trying to get close enough to see it, you know. That was his story pretty much. But he said that the guy Mitch had arrived on the airplane the same day that a hurricane with his identical name had come and wiped everybody out. And the leader of the death cult had told him, yeah, that was you getting your power. So they accounted Mitch the man and Mitch the hurricane as the same energy, and gave Mitch the man credit for gaining the energy of all of the people and destruction that the hurricane had caused when they died. And so they and he was already down there, like feeling like he was on a mission, and Horsley had met him right around that time and was involved with him. But please, I've made mistakes in the past quoting or referencing Horsley's work, and I don't want it to happen again, so please take everything I said with a grain of salt. I'll drop the link after the show. You'll be able to find it in the description. You can go listen to it yourself and hear the specific details without my possibly jumbled description. His name was definitely Mitch, though. So yeah, I was looking here. See, I don't think we need to go too much farther on Santa Muerte. It does say that she disappeared from written history for a little while. The first modern shrine opened in Mexico City in 2001. Says the sect which worshipped the skeletal figure would gain between 10 to 12 million followers across Mexico, Central America, and the United States, making it the fastest growing religious movement in the world. Wow, 10 to 12 million people practicing the worship of death. That's pretty far out, Jim.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard. I mean, it's the next thing it says is, you know, the rise in popularity coincided with the rising death toll from the drug wars in Mexico. So, in a way, like the people willing to pull the trigger and to be in gunfights and to slang so much hard drugs, they're kind of forcing everyone to take consideration of death and possibly worship death. You know what I mean? And I would assume that they're doing it on purpose. They're using death as the main tool, the threat of death and violence and torture. And so then you kind of trauma fuck everybody into venerating death because they know they can't get away from it, you know?
Yeah. Well, yeah, eventually, on a long enough timeline, everything dies.
Yeah, that's what tonight's show is all about. Yeah, the narco saint. So this article's not bad. Allthat'sinteresting.com, Santa Muerte. This far superior to anything you'll ever find on Wikipedia. You go to Wikipedia and it probably says, well, not everybody calls her Saint Death. Some people call her, you know, Saint kind of mean guy.
Kind of mean guy.
I'm in case you can't tell, I'm kind of mad now at Wikipedia for the whole Kali thing. Like, you jerks. What are you guys doing? But yeah, I remember when I first landed on this a few years back, that was the weird thing, was that not only were the churches looking for more exorcists down there in South America, but that this was the other big problem. It was like a couple of articles all stuck together, and it was really fascinating. I find Catholicism to be very confusing and contradictory. So whenever I Catholicism, yeah. I mean, it's like, to me, just the idea of how different it is from one place to another, it undermines the idea of it being a universal church. You know, I mean, and it still really works. I mean, a Catholic is a Catholic anywhere in the world, and it might be pretty severely different if you leave Germany and go to South America. But you are still attending a Catholic mass. You know, there still is the hierarchy of people, and the positions of power or leadership are pretty much identical. So, I mean, I get it, but it's that same idea that trips me out. It's like, okay, so if we're Catholics this week, we're in Germany, you know, we go to the kind of sterile, bland, serious Catholic church, and we go through our little ritual there and prayers and everything. And then we're like, all right, let's go to, you know, down to South America somewhere. I was trying to think of a really bad place, but nothing popped to mind. You know, and you got to walk by all the Saint Death altars to get to the actual church. And get inside, and here's a huge idol of the Black Madonna instead, right?
Yeah.
So let's read about the Black Madonna, because I've never really looked her up. So here we go. University of Dayton EDU, as opposed to Wikipedia. I'm already permanently offended by Wikipedia anyway, because they're always running like the crappiest propaganda campaign to try and get you to donate. I mean, like, that's already so annoying. So for them to get it totally wrong on Kali, now it's just like they're going to be on my shit list for a while now. So here, Black Madonnas, origin, history, controversy. There are Black Madonnas and... Let's see, there are Black Madonnas and Black Madonnas with a capital B. The former applies generically to any dark skin color representation of Mary. Falling into this category are recent depictions of Our Lady, like Larry Scully's Madonna and Child of Soweto. What? Of Soweto? Anyway, I'm going to skip that. The term used frequently to designate these images is encultured Madonnas, meaning artwork by African or African American artists, sometimes by other artists of other racial background. For people of the same or similar cultures. So they're saying little b Black Madonnas are just depictions of Mary as a person of color, a person with dark skin, or a black lady. So it says they're of recent origin. I was trying to get down here to capital B. Yeah, this guy made it all the way to his third paragraph before he let us know that that's not what he's talking about. However, this is not the topic of the following feature. The meaning of Black Madonna with a capital B used here refers to a type of Marian statue or painting of mainly medieval origin, of dark or black features whose exact origins are not always easy to determine, and most important, of particular prominence. The latter, the prominence of the Black Madonna, is mostly due to the allegedly miraculous character of the image. Boy, this guy's writing is really not very good. I was hoping it would be better. Yeah, this article is just not good enough for me to skim and try and give you reference from, because it's poorly written, in my opinion. Do you know the history of them? Have you ever looked it up, Jim?
Of what?
Black Madonnas?
We were talking about it in the chat a while earlier. Krista knows about it. She was talking about, let's see. Black Madonna means the hidden goddess, is what she said. And it's metaphorical for how the feminine was eradicated to form the religion of the Hebrews.
Okay.
It doesn't necessarily mean goddess or female. It means sacrificing your intuitive nature to the rule of the new God. the very literal domineering lawmaker.
Interesting. Okay. So it's representative of the idea of all feminine and intuitive energy having to go underground.
Yeah.
Like spiritually underground too. Like you might know that the feminine energy is there, but you still have to act as if only male energy exists, or that at least it trumps female energy, huh?
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I might have to. We might have to look at this closer. I think this the Black Madonna stuff is probably too nuanced to include with our death study. But it is fascinating. I remember Tracy talking about it one time too. I just don't remember the specific details.
Well, I noticed Beyonce doing a lot of Madonna, dressing like Madonna imagery in some of her videos or photography. And so she always made me think of the Black Madonna. But I'm not sure if that's what she was necessarily going for. Maybe just a Madonna sort of reference.
Yeah, I was just glancing at images to see, but there's definitely let's see if we can get this image here. Open image in new tab. That's the one I like. So I'd say I don't know how long it's going to take for that to pop up on your screen, but I'd say this is reasonable evidence that they are representing her as the Black Madonna. Because, boy, her outfit and this ancient piece of artwork are almost identical.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for it. Be a couple seconds. Yeah, because Beyonce, she recently in like the last couple of years, she bought a church, and I guess they have her followers come to the church, and they have like a Beyonce. They worship
like
Beyonce.
A mass, like mass for Queen Bee.
Queen Bee, yeah, that's. I mean,
Whoa.
I haven't really too much, but it's. Yeah, I think they either celebrate her there or they worship her or something. I know it's. I don't know if it's just a scam to, you know, to not have to pay tax if you have a church.
Yeah, I doubt it's just that though, because her and Jay-Z totally seem like the epitome of will to power in the famous black entertainers group. Like that's, to me, you can't really get more quote unquote Illuminati than Jay-Z calling himself Hova and just like
do as thou wilt sweaters.
Yeah. I mean, he just is not really, he's kind of taken the definition of the word occult out of it when you externalize the entire hierarchy and show the revelation of the method in every action you take. It's not secret anymore,
Yeah. Yeah, and there was an article a couple years ago, I think, it was like Beyonce's drummer. She was getting harassed by Beyonce, apparently. She sued her or took her to court and said that Beyonce had killed her kitten or sacrificed her, to curse her or something. And they threw it out because they kind of made the woman seem like she was crazy.
Yeah.
But it sort of falls
it's the top link. Beyonce murdered my kitten with witchcraft.
Yeah, maybe you want to read that.
I mean, even if it's a kitten, it's still death, right?
Yeah. And if you're doing a inverted black magic, you got to be doing, it's more powerful if you do it in a Christian church, right?
Oh, back to what we said earlier, right? Like old William Wallace about lost. I'm pretty sure that's the way the story went. It was either him or it was one of the main guys that were with him. And in the process of their battling back and forth, they chased one of the enemies into the church and killed him. And about lost him the whole game.
Yeah.
Because you desecrate the church. You have to repent and reconsecrate the church. You know, that's why... Here, I know you know the story in Walla Walla that they think that there's witches buried in the cemetery because there's these symbols on the gravestones that point down like this, right?
Like a hand pointing down?
Yeah, there's a symbol. It's like graves from the late 1800s, and it's just an old symbol. Like there used to be an article online explaining why it was wrong and why they weren't witches. And it's fascinating. There's a really fascinating headstone. If we could get our account back up to 1,000 subscribers so that we could live stream IRL and go out on the road, we could go over and look at that headstone. Or did we already do that? Did we do that already?
Go look at headstones? No.
We never did that, right?
No.
Anyways, you know, one of the main things is people would point out is that obviously it's not witches buried in the Christian cemetery, because as pagans they would consider them outcasts and they wouldn't bury them in consecrated ground, because the entire cemetery has been consecrated through whatever ritual process of making sure that it's ready to receive the faithful. And you know, so they're not going to bury the, you know, they'll burn the witches up or throw them in a communal grave or anything but let them be buried in the regular cemetery, because back in the day that would have been the most offensive thing you could do, right?
Yeah.
I mean, of course, I disagree with that thinking altogether, but that's the way life is, you know. Like, that's like the ultimate NIMBY, huh? Not in my backyard.
Oh, that's NIMBY? That's funny. You know, maybe they're buried in a backyard somewhere. I know there's some, like, pioneer graveyards around here that...
Oh, yeah.
Under a tree someplace in somebody's property. You know, farmers, and they're pretty creepy. I stumbled upon.
So since you brought this up, I'm going to go ahead and read it, man. Chris Rogers, this is only from September of 2018. It says, "This is wild. Beyonce's former drummer has accused her of murdering her kitten. But that's not all. She's blaming the singer of doing, as evidenced by... Oh, let me get that right. But that's not all she's blaming the singer of doing, as evidenced by explosive new court docs. See them here. Beyonce's former drummer, Kimberly Thompson, requested a temporary restraining order against the apeshit singer as she claims Queen Bee subjected her to dark magic, extreme witchcraft, and magic spells of sexual molestation over the course of the 7 years they worked together. Wild, right? After we initially learned Kimberly was accusing Beyonce of molestation on September 20th, Hollywood Life obtained our own copy of the shocking court docs, and the extent of Kimberly's claims against the singer are staggering. Kimberly's list of complaints in the documents include the loss of many jobs, theft of homes, magic spells on my lovers. She even blames Beyonce for numerous broken relationships. Oh, and let's not forget that Kimberly also accused Beyonce of the murder of her pet kitten. As far as why Kimberly thinks Beyonce would want to harm her, she didn't make that clear in the documents. In fact, she didn't list a motive at all in her claims. Unfortunately for Kimberly, a judge denied her request for temporary restraining order, writing that evidence in support of allegations is insufficient. Even so, a large number of Twitter users reacted to the news, and their tweets are hilarious. "Use that witchcraft on me, Beyonce, I'm begging," one fan on Twitter asked, while another joked, "Like a restraining order is going to stop her, LMAO, Queen of Witchcraft." A user also added, "I mean, if that's what it takes to have her money, sign me up. Hashtag Beyonce, I'm ready." So there's only a couple more paragraphs, but yeah, that's far out. And I know that most people would scoff at the idea, but if you peek underneath the curtain a little bit, look behind the scenes a little bit, it's really not that shocking of an idea that Beyonce is heavily involved in black magic, because boy, she's kind of telling you she is. You know, it's hard not to... It's going to be hard for her to defend the accusations with a church with her name on it. You know, if you've made yourself a goddess temple and you go inside there, or you allow people to worship you as a living god, well, there's not really a lot people can do to defend you then against the accusations of black magic.
Yeah.
I always have sympathy on these people. I feel like they're just horribly taken advantage of and led astray. I would do a whole show on Beyonce if we could get some kind of an expert to come on. I wonder if we could get the drummer.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Because I think I know someone who actually was messaging with that drummer on Instagram. Seriously.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I'll follow up and see. Maybe we can get something going. That'd be pretty awesome, dude.
Yeah. Maybe, do you think Jay-Z would come on the show?
No. And I didn't say let's not misunderstand SB Alger here. I don't want to have Jay-Z and Beyonce on Picture Show.
Yeah.
I really don't, and it's not a diss. I'm just not ready. I'm really it's gonna take me a lot to be ready for that. Like, I probably need $10,000 to feel ready. Because I'm just not ready. I won't do a good job, Jim. I feel like I'm kind of stuttering and already having technical difficulties tonight, and it's just me and you wearing Halloween costumes. So
Technical difficulties.
I mean, but her ex-drummer, I could go for that. That sounds like it's in the sphere of Picture Show. Beyonce's former drummer, but not Beyonce, and not Rihanna either. I can't. No. We'll take suggestions in the Discord or in the chat for other famous black females. That's fine, but I'm already taking Rihanna and Beyonce are off the list. I can't. That's too intense. I won't make it. I'll just sit there like.
Well, what if they want to come on? You might be breaking their hearts.
I don't know, man. I need backup.
Yeah.
Let's see who. If I could get Hotep Jesus to come on and help me do the interview, then maybe I would feel safe.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I'll mind the chat.
I'll mind the chat. So we're doing pretty good here. We got definitions out of the way, symbols out of the way, gods out of the way. We kind of skewed off into the Black Madonna and Queen Bee. So I'm gonna scratch out art and music because it's getting later. I don't want to cover that. But I had experiences written down here. I had one really shocking, well, two actually really shocking, horrible experiences with death. And I know you and I have both had a similar near-death experience. I think yours was more, was probably closer to real death, and mine was just pretty scary. But I probably really wasn't too much at risk of actually dying. Do you want to tell your near-death story, Jim?
Which one? The ocean?
Yeah, I think so. It was yeah, surfing. I think it was surfing, right?
Yeah. Well, let me I'll be right back. I'm gonna use the restroom really quick.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. I'll keep busy here for a second, and then we'll hear your story when you get back. So back in the olden days of Picture Show, when we were still allowed to remain in the Picture Show studio, when we didn't have such a huge fan base and such notoriety, during these times when we would take a break or someone had to step away, or even if we were just bored, we would yo-yo. How do you get that thing right in front of the camera? Oh, I guess there's the camera. And juggle. I'm a yo-yoer. Jim's a juggler. So I was trying to yo-yoing sitting down. It's not easy. This is called the cat's cradle. Or rocking the baby in the cradle, pardon me. I don't know if I could do a cat's cradle. There's a cool little yo-yo for $6 I bought at the Hobby Lobby. Let's see. You you can make it sit on the string like that. They call that the man in the flying trapeze. Usually you make the yo-yo fly and jump up onto the string, but like I said, sitting down, I got a table behind me, otherwise I'd stand up and make a little room. And that's another thing we used to do. We used to adjust cameras and scoot back, and Jim would juggle and I would yo-yo. Sometimes we do it together. So that's a tradition I'm not willing to give up on.
Yeah. Mostly I would just throw my juggling balls around.
No, Jim, you're for not practicing consistently, you still your skill still shows that you did practice consistently at one time, because I've worked for quite a few hours on juggling, and I cannot juggle. I can't even juggle 2 balls. So, no pun intended, folks. Ha ha. Oh, I could hear the chat mounting up against me as soon as that stupid sentence left my mouth.
Yeah, we're gonna have to clip that one. Put it on the stupid shit SB says video. It's not gonna be a very long video, of course.
Yeah, right. That's actually my dream, is to one day, like, I'm having a down day and I'm kind of annoyed and depressed, and like it comes up in my own recommendations, like stupid shit SB Alger says, and I'm like, what? And I click on it and it's like 3 hours of me just being a dumbass. And I'd be like, yes, and I'd be so cringy. That's what we listened to the whole last episode with James True because somebody had caught part of it, and then they put it on, and it was so hard to listen. I really don't see what everyone likes about me. I really don't think people are lying and saying they like me when they don't, but I mean, they really do. People, like I said, my birthday completely humbled me. Like, so many people sent me messages and brought me gifts and were so kind to me. It's like, oh my gosh. I just kind of think of myself as a dumbass, but very humbling. So that would be great. If I could get the opposite, where someone's like, here's the real SB, and it's just me, like, fumbling words, failing to read effectively, stalling but not being very good at it, telling jokes and having them fall flat, saying something rude or stupid. I mean, that wouldn't surprise me to have that compilation come out. I still want a compilation of you reading all the jokes.
Yeah, that'd be fun. Be a SB surprise bathroom break Jim joke compilation.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that, since you went, I'm going to go, but go ahead and start your story and I'll be right back.
All right.
Tell us what happened when you went surfing, Jim.
So I went surfing one time. But I've been surfing quite a few times. But, I was in Hawaii, and I must have been like 14 maybe, and I went surfing. Like, usually, like, also, like, I wear glasses, and I didn't have contacts back then, so I would never wear my glasses surfing. So it kind of, first I blind myself by taking my glasses off. But anyway, I was out there surfing, and I had rented a surfboard, and it didn't have a tether. Like, somebody had broken the tether off. It was, you know, a used and abused rental surfboard with no strap to tether it to your leg in case you get, you know, knocked off and fall in the water. And I like was out there surfing. It was a really nice day. I caught this pretty good sized wave, you know, it was like a 4.5 foot, 5 foot wave. And I got up on the board and I was surfing pretty good. And then at the very end, you know, a little ways in, I just kind of, I ate it. I fell off the surf. And I washed in the waves, just kind of like rolled. And I pop up out of the water after, you know, rolling under the water. And as soon as I pop up out of the water, there was it was like a double wave, like 2 waves right back to back. The first wave I caught and I was surfing on it, and then fell off the board and I was underwater. As soon as I popped up, the second wave picked up my surfboard and slammed it right smack in my forehead, like whack. Like, and it had some momentum, so it like hit me right between the eyes and knocked me back underwater, and I was disoriented and like spinning. And I remember like opening my eyes and being all panicked and like trying to swim, but there was currents pulling me down and spinning me around, and I couldn't tell which way was up, and I like panicked for a second. It's like because I was trying to swim, but I wasn't going anywhere. I was just staying in the same, getting just rocked by the ocean. The ocean is such a powerful thing. It's so big, and it's powerful. I mean, it does what it wants. It'll hold you down, and that's what it did. It just held me right down there, and I couldn't move. I remember there was like bubbles all around, but they like weren't going anywhere. They were just like there in the water, and I kind of got to this place in my head where I was like, I'm not gonna get out of this. I think I'm gonna drown.
Whoa, man, that's scary.
All of a sudden, like, I started feeling this peace with myself, like, oh, it's okay. I'm not gonna make it, but it's okay. I'm just gonna, like, I kind of gave up, and like, because I wasn't getting anywhere, and the panic was gone. I was just at peace. I was like, I'm gonna drown. It's okay. And as soon as I thought that, like, I feel this, like, somebody grabs me by my arm and hoists me up out of the water and throws me over my surfboard. And it was a local kid, a local surfer, a few years older than me, probably, 17 or 18 or something. And he hoisted me up and put me on my board, and then he just paddles away. Like, he was like shaking his head like freaking tourist or something.
Yeah, wow, dude.
And I just, it was just like, I couldn't believe it. I was just exhausted from trying to fight the water.
Did you paddle in and just give up for the day?
Yeah, I paddled in and just, sat there on the land and was just staring at that surfboard and looking out at the water, thinking, wow. I thought I was gonna die, and like the really scary thing was that I felt peace with it. Like how quickly the panic and the I wasn't prepared. I didn't have a lungs full of air when I got knocked under the water. It was like I went up to gasp for air, and then I got hit in the head by my surfboard and back under the water. So like
Now, didn't you tell me that the reason like your clip to hold the board to your ankle was stuck or it broke, or was that part of it too, or not?
Yeah, there was no tether on the board.
Okay.
Surfboards have a strap, a bungee cord that goes to your ankle or your wrist or something.
Yeah.
There was no tether. It was a rental board, and it was the most frightening thing was that feeling of peace. Like, I can still remember it, like how, I guess they say that drowning is a peaceful way to go, and it makes sense once the sort of panic of not being able to breathe wears off. Then it was just it was pretty frightening. I think I hung up my surfboard for a few years after that because I was just didn't really want to go through that again.
No, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And it's always been one of my fears of death since I was young, to drown at night in the ocean alone. Like, that idea has always given me a panicky, horrible anxiety feeling,
Yeah, for sure.
And I told you I have a similar story of my own. Like, I was trying to impress a beautiful Hispanic girl when I was probably 16 or 17. And her brother had just come back from the Marines, and we were out swimming at the river at a place where there's some really huge cliffs, and it's the confluence of two rivers. And he had climbed up. There's a shorter cliff that everyone jumps off of, like 40 or 50 feet. And it's a hell of a rush if you jump off of it. But, you know, about the time you get disoriented and feel like your heart's going to jump into your throat, you hit the water on the short cliff, you know.
Yeah.
And so because he had just gotten back from the military and he was showing off, and he was kind of a really buff guy, but he kind of had short man syndrome, so he was always showing off and being the best. And he went up to the taller cliff, which is like 80 or 90 feet, and jumped off of there and successfully pulled it off, and everyone was stoked. And so me trying to impress this girl, I said, I'm going to do it too. And if she wouldn't have been at the top of the cliff, I probably would have backed out. But because she was there and I said I was gonna, I jumped off the cliff, and I fell, and my body adjusted at like a 45-degree angle, and so I almost belly flopped on my back, you know. Like, I remember the pain. I hurt my back was injured for a long time because of this jump. And I remember the same feeling, like I'm deep underwater, like deeper underwater than I can remember ever being. And I'm looking up, and it's serene and surreal. And some part of me is like aware, and I'm swimming, but I don't really feel like I'm going anywhere. And I probably was, but I just didn't feel like it because, you know, the sun was bright and the water was blue, and it just seemed just like out of a movie the way they portray it. And I was like, oh crap, I don't think I'm going to make it. And a kind of a similar feeling, you know, like I wasn't completely at ease, but I was logically accepting of the idea. Like, I'm swimming, I'm not moving, I'm far from the surface. It looked to me like 30 feet or something, you know, like it probably wasn't, but it looked impossibly far away. And the next thing so I was like, crap, I'm not going to make it. And I was in massive pain. I lost all my air and my back. Like, I really hurt my back. I could hardly walk. I almost broke my back. And a girl, I remember a girl named Camille who was there with us, and I kind of had a crush on her, so it was even more embarrassing. You know, obviously, typical 16-year-old boy, right? Like, I'm going to impress one of these pretty girls and get something out of them. Instead, I injure myself. And Camille swam over and, like, got me up with my arm around her shoulder, and I was okay, and I was just really tender and hurt after that. But I remember when you first told me your surfing story, it was the same kind of an idea, you know, like, oh, we have a really similar story, except for I think that yours obviously was a lot more severe and closer to real death, you know. I think I could have probably broken my back. I don't know, if I had broken my back, I might have drowned, you know, but...
So I would have drowned if that guy hadn't yanked me out of the water, because I really didn't know which way was up. I went from panic to peace with it, and I wasn't even trying at that point. I stopped trying to fight the water. So it was a really lucky thing that kid was there. Yeah, I didn't really think about it as a near-death experience, but I guess it kind of is. You don't really have to be... You don't have to. Your heart doesn't have to stop to have a near-death experience.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't one of those near-death experiences that we hear about on shows where people are talking about what happened. My friend in the wheelchair had an experience when he was in the hospital, first injured of being. He told me he was floating above his body, and that he knew that he had permission to die if he wanted to. That he had to make a choice. He was floating above his body, and he could see all the tubes coming out of him and how dilapidated and hurt he was, and that his soul had to make a choice between going back into that body and living in it or being set free. And he said he was totally at peace and at ease, kind of similar to what you described, and that he chose to stay. And so I always thought that was pretty far out, you know, like that's a pretty crazy thing to say.
I've had an out-of-body experience before. I mean, where I was looking down on myself from above. It was pretty weird.
I found the cliff. You guys want to see the cliff I jumped off of?
Yeah.
So here's a minute and 40 seconds of slow motion footage of these guys jumping. off of this cliff, and this is the cliff here in the state of Washington. Now that looks to me like the lower cliff. Where I jumped was over here on the left. Yeah, it looks to me like they're jumping off the 30 or 40 footer here. And it might be that the cliff I jumped off was this one all the way to the far left. This farther cliff. I think that's where I jumped from. Is that farther cliff. Where the hell? Oh, they took this footage with a drone. That's interesting. Is your drone still up and running, Jim?
It's in the garage. I haven't flown it for a while.
Haven't messed with it for a while?
Yeah,
That's another thing we could do for the show. We got quite a few cameras we're not utilizing. We should see if we can get up to 1,000 subscribers by the time the weather breaks, and then we could get out in the field again.
I'm kind of thinking there might be a way we can do it in the field. I'm looking at some remote desktop stuff so that I could actually go in and turn my computer on and set all the, get it running on the computer from a remote location, and then send myself a Zoom invitation to my cell phone.
Yeah, I mean, that would be cool. And I like the idea of just ramping up subscribers because I think we have a good show and it's worth it for people to,
Pretty dang close.
I mean, I'd like to get up to 100,000, but we could start with 1,000.
We only need 189 subscribers.
Yeah, that's not very many. We only need 189?
Yeah.
So if 10 people got 10 each, just kidding. I guess that's 10 people would have to get 20, almost 20 each. Now that seems like a lot. Like for me to leave this week and be like, I gotta go find 20 people to subscribe to my YouTube channel. That seems like a huge task and a lot to ask. So if everyone, instead of getting 20, everyone could just go find 2, at least by the time we get here next week. And you can't just have bums down at the homeless camp subscribe. You gotta find real people. You gotta bring people into our secret club here. But we can't just I guess, Generation Z guys that make a lot of memes, they would probably be okay, but I know they're going to blow up our chat and hassle the shit out of us. They're not going to think we're funny or cool at all. We're just going to be like a not very scary bear to poke.
Handicapped bear.
Yeah, like you think it's a bear, but really it's just a guy wearing a Little Red Riding Hood wolf costume. And a guy that thinks it's cool to buy all of the clothes with the jazz solo cut print and wear it around. And still says hella. Like, I bought all this stuff because it's hella cool.
It's hella cool. So hella cool.
So now you probably not a hella guy because that's just not your thing. What did they say over in PDX instead?
Instead of hella?
Well, I just assumed they didn't say hella. Like, Californians would come to that area and say hella, and then everyone would do this, like... right? Yeah. And they'd say soda instead of pop. And so then you're like, a soda? What's a soda? You mean like you need to clear out the drains? You need some soda?
Yeah. I never know what people are saying. I always notice what people somewhere else say. Like, get a friend from Boston and they're like, wicked. It was wicked fun and that was wicked cool. Then I notice it. There's my Southern California friends saying hella.
Hella. But, you know it's good if they say hecka too.
Hecka?
Yeah, I still say hecka and hella, and it's never like I think to say it. Like I'm excited about something. I'm like, oh yeah, that would be hella cool. And I like, there it is. It's still there. It's still part of my dialect to say hella and hecka. Hecka bad.
Well, it's a heck of a good time.
Yeah.
Hecka.
Well, that's different. Heck of a. Hecka.
Hecka.
Like hecka is like, I guess that probably came from religious or strict parents. So everyone else is saying hella. And your mom's like, don't you say that, that's a swear word. And so you're like, okay, well, it's hecka cool then, Mom. You can't.
Double sticks.
Yeah, you can't say hella, so you gotta say hecka.
What is that? Hecta. Is that 7? Hectogram?
Is hect 7? Let's see what hecto. Let's see what it says.
Hecto.
Factor of 100.
Oh, hecto, right?
How many is hecto?
We are hecto.
It says is a decimal unit prefix in the metric system denoting a factor of 100, adopted as a multiplier in 1795. It comes from the Greek hecaton, meaning 100. Interesting. Oh, that makes me think of the octagon. We're going to have to study up on that and do a show on the octagon.
Oh yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, I saw this video by a guy named Sean Hross.
Yeah, Hross, right?
Yeah, Hross, about pharaonic lineage in Switzerland, actually being hidden hand that rules the world.
Yeah, a show about the Swiss would be pretty awesome. We should gather like a... I know what we could do. We could come up with the idea to do a show about the Swiss, and then we'll find a way to make Harrison think it was his idea, and that way we can get a really good outline.
Yeah, Harrison does awesome outlines.
Harrison is such a true academic mind. Like, he just whips up an outline because he's so adept in having to do hard study and work. Like, what would take me a week, he's like, all right, that took a few hours and I've got the beginning done. Like, that would take me a week. And he just gets it done. Like, okay, I'm awake. I brushed my teeth. I'm going to make this outline. So I was looking at my lists of, so we both recounted some experiences. Do you have experiences with, I guess this is a dangerous question. Have you ever seen someone die, Jim? If you don't want to answer, it's okay. I know that's a hardcore question to ask. If you're not interested to answer, just say I don't want to talk about that, and we'll change the subject.
Kind of.
Because I just remembered something when I was in, this isn't too sensitive and close to my heart, so I can share it. And you don't have to share your story if you don't want to. The question just kind of popped out because I was brainstorming, and I realized it's like really tentative place to go. But when I was in junior high school in California, there was a high school kid who came over to the junior high sports fields, and he was all whacked out on LSD or something. He was all acting crazy. And the coach couldn't get control of him, and while the coach was trying to get control of him, the kid went over and he grabbed like a 2x4 or a big piece of wood that was on the bleachers, and he just superhuman strength just ripped it off of the bleachers, and he was swinging it around at people and threatening to physically attack people. And he was all like, they think he was high on acid or whatever, And so at that junior high school, it was such a rough neighborhood that we had an actual cop on duty all the time. He was like a retired cop, but he still had a car and a badge and a gun. Like, he had retired into being the school security officer. But like, the school was all enclosed with fences and locks. Like, you shut the whole thing down at night like a prison. Had lights on it. It was a bad neighborhood. So the school was pretty militarized, kind of in its in its security and everything. And this this school security cop jumped in his car and drove out into the sports fields instead of going on foot. And he chased after the kid, and the kid fell in front of all of us. And he ran him over and killed him right in front of all of us. They sent us all home from school. It was just atrocious, you know. It was.
Why did he chase him with his car? Was he being lazy?
Yeah, he was a big fat guy.
You know, we had one of those cops at our school, and he got busted down from regular policing because he did something naughty, and so they posted him up at the high school full time.
Yeah.
Gave him a Camaro that was confiscated from a drug dealer. It was all painted up like Dare, you know, the Dare Camaro.
Yeah.
He did like something he shouldn't have done with drugs, or who knows. I know that he was a disgraced policeman, so he ended up having to be the cop at the high school.
Yeah, this guy was similar. He wasn't disgraced, but what had happened was I remember he told me that he had to go into it because he was cool to me, and he gave me a ride home once or twice, and he would always make my grandma freak out because, you know, a cop car pulls up and then I climb out of the back, you know, but it's just the school security cop. But he said that the reason he retired was because he'd gone to a place where a man was in the process of murdering his family, and he'd gone in there and shot the man to death while he was trying to attack him. Like, he came in to try and resolve, you know, be the cop on the scene, and the man came at him with a butcher knife or whatever, and he shot him to death. And after that, he took leave, and then he never did go back to regular police work. In a way, that makes me have sympathy on the guy. I mean, we always hated him for doing that because it was really irresponsible, and that young man didn't have to die. You know, there was all kinds of ways that he could have prevented that. He did something really offensive too. In his own shock of what had happened, he jumped out and threw handcuffs on the kid. And, you know, and he wasn't immediately dead. It's funny that we read that instantaneous versus immediate. I guess he did die immediately, but he didn't die instantaneously. So it was really horrible. I remember making uncomfortable jokes as we were leaving the school because I didn't have any way to process it. You know, I remember like saying stupid things to my classmates, trying to make light of it because we were all in such shock of what had happened.
Yeah.
And all the parents were freaked out for weeks and weeks. Like the vibe in the air of that whole situation like agitated the whole school. You know, like it was crazy.
Well, it's out of the blue. You don't know. It makes you uneasy, that kind of situation.
Yeah, it was pretty weird. And like I said, if you look up Del Paso Heights, Rio Linda in California, it's a really, like, I wouldn't go back there now. I wouldn't get off the freeway in those neighborhoods. I don't know anyone there. We wouldn't be safe there, you know. If I got a flat tire, I'd probably drive on the rim until I could get out of town. Seriously, because it's just not worth it. It was bad that was probably 1988 or something. It was bad then, so I don't even want to know what it's like now.
Yeah. I've seen people pass away, and I kind of blocked it out, I think, but as you were telling your story, I was remembering my grandfather pretty much died well, not in my arms, but I was there holding his hand when he died on my mom's side.
Wow.
He was in bad shape, and he'd had like infections, and he stubbed his toe, and it never really healed properly, and about 6 months later they ended up having to amputate his leg from just above the knee down.
Yeah.
Just being, having poor circulation, being, older.
No, it happens. Yeah, it's really common when you get older, and especially if you have if you already have diabetes or circulatory issues, you can start losing parts real fast.
Yeah, he didn't have diabetes, but I mean, his health just sort of tanked after that. Like within the year, they amputated like the toes on his other foot, and then his other leg just below the knee, and then some fingers, and he would get infections a lot in in his blood, and it would cause him to sort of have dementia. And so like I would go visit him quite a bit. Like I moved up here to Walla Walla, and he was here, so I used to go see him like every day and hang out with him, and like he get kind of weird, and then I'd go talk to his doctor and say I think he's got another infection, because he would just be kind of loopy and like do weird stuff and not really know what's going on. And yeah, so he was pretty much like that when at the end, and he had MRSA pretty bad. So like I was there with my mom and her sister, and we were visiting him in his hospital. We knew it was pretty close, and we had to wear like they gave us scrubs to wear, and gloves and masks, and
Yeah.
He had the MRSA, and so it felt, it's all pretty weird, wearing, having to suit up. It's like kind of like separates you from the humanity.
Yeah, absolutely. The costuming and prevention makes it not feel natural or normal or good, definitely.
And we were in there talking to him, and he was really not in there for, at the end. He was just kind of like, on painkillers and sort of dementia'd out a little bit. So like he wasn't really making sense if he was talking. And I was like holding both of his hands and like talking to him, like looking him in the eyes, and he was just kind of like glassy and kind of looking around and muttering sort of nonsense. And then he like opens his eyes really wide and looks right at me in my eyes, and he says, "Jim," like he tried to like get the words out.
Yeah, that's scary.
I like chills. And then he like looks over my shoulder and he says, "Mama!" Like there was somebody behind me. Like, I don't know. He saw his mother or
Wow.
wife or something, and then he passed away right after that. And it was just like, it was really, really shocking. I remember I went home and just sat outside. I mean, it was like probably midnight when this happened or something. I sat outside for like 3 or 4 hours and just stared at the moon. It was a big full moon that night, just about full.
Yeah, I'm sure to try and process that would be like insane. I mean, how old were you?
It was probably about 5 or 6 years ago.
So at least you were an adult. That kind of helps, at least,
Yeah. It was like right before I met you, I think. So it was when I was at that one house over by the fire station. But yeah, I was just kind of shook. Like he hadn't like recognized anybody for, I don't know, maybe like a month or something before that. So like it was really weird. It made me feel really good that he said my name, like, but I don't know. He just kind of moaned it out. And
No, I mean, that's a really far out set of last words. The whole situation's that makes me think of your other story that you told before about the premonition of death. But yeah, that's, wow. It made me think, I know we talked about some other stories, but I don't know if we should tell them or not, man. I don't want to take it too dark and just get it to where it becomes completely macabre.
Well, the premonition of death, which one are you talking about?
Oh no, that was a different. I think you told it on the show on some episode where someone passed away and you had a premonition of it. So when they contacted you to let you know, you already knew.
Yeah, my mom called tonight, and
Like it had come to you. You knew what was happening.
I said, I know, it's okay. I know Uncle Bud died. And
Yeah.
she's like, and then she sobbed, and I was like, I
Yeah,
don't know why.
that feeling is how I felt about Jesse Waugh, and I even reached out and tried to contact some people that I knew were mutual friends or whatever, and it's like I was almost just waiting, like I knew, because he always would get back to me. I mean, he wouldn't give me all of his time, but I also wouldn't be rude and be needy and try to get his time. He was a busy guy, painting all the time, but when he didn't get back to me, it just makes me think of my grandma. I knew the same thing. I saw my grandmother's corpse, her dead body, because the dial-a-ride people had called, and she wasn't answering the door or answering her phone, and I just immediately knew that, like, that means that she's dead. And so instead of letting the sheriff or somebody else go over there, I went over there and identified the situation for what it was on my own, and it was just atrocious.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it was far out. I mean, I'm glad I did it because I wouldn't want to. I see it as more honorable and the right thing to do. If it's your loved one, then you really shouldn't, in my opinion, allow anyone else to take that position and have to go in there. I mean, unless it's someone else in your family, someone who has more authority and is older than you, who is in a position to. But that messed me up for a long time because she'd been passed away for a while and she looked really, really bad. And of course, the smell was pretty bad. And for whatever reason, for quite a few years, it made it so I couldn't eat Chinese food because the smell was similar enough that for a long time, like if I went someplace where there was Chinese food being served, it's like I gotta get out of here. It was so similar to the smell that it smelled like death. It smelled terrible to me and horrifying. Like it would spawn, like I would get a physiological reaction and have to be like, I have to leave. I mean, if I couldn't have left with people in a courteous fashion, I would have walked out of there, not disrespecting anyone. Like, I just can't stay here,
Yeah. Yeah, I understand. There's just, when you know someone, in their life, and then you see them after they've passed away, there's just this sort of like gaunt look that they have.
Yeah.
When once life is left, that is like you can't forget it. I don't like to remember the people that I love that way.
No, yeah, I don't ever go. I've seen very few deceased people's bodies because I don't go to funeral viewings, and I just don't. The memories I have of people, I want it to be of the living people. And there's exceptions to the rule. If I know someone and I love them and they're actively laying in bed dying, I'll go sit with them and I won't be afraid to be there. But if it's already happened, I'm not interested to see the body. I want the permanent memory to be of them alive. My father tragically passed away when I was 23. He died young because he really abused drugs and alcohol. I didn't really know him very well. And then we kind of started to get to know each other, and when I was 13 and about 16 or 17, and he unexpectedly passed away, and I had to fax and sign off all the information back to California to let them turn off the life support. And they were really encouraging me that if I wanted to, that they would wait, and they were just being courteous and professional. But it's just like, no way. Like, my memory is fresh of something good, like my memory of my father is him. And I definitely don't want to travel all the way to another state to enter into some strange room full of beeps and weird merchandise all strewn around and tied to him and permanently change that into something else. I didn't want to do it, I just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
we thought it was a really ironic and beautiful blessing that, like, my father had a reputation of being a really severe alcoholic, but he had quit for 10 years before he died, quit using altogether by using Narcotics Anonymous and Alcoholics Anonymous. He really worked his program, like, he worked it the same way that he used and abused substances. You know, he made it into like an obsessive compulsive, almost unhealthy, but definitely healthier than using kind of a thing. And because he'd done that and eaten reasonably well and gotten some exercise, his liver actually regenerated and completely healed, and someone was able to get it. You know, like they organ donation worked, and they sent me cards and paperwork and information, and someone was able to receive his eyes, and someone was able to receive his liver. And I remember 5 or 6 of us sitting around just laughing our asses off, like laughing until we had tears in our eyes, that somehow, you know, they're like, what do you mean you used his liver? No, you didn't. Like, that's impossible, right? You know, so that was kind of funny. Yeah, I was trying to think. I think we covered it all, Jim. I think we did good talking about death. It's getting later. It's almost 10 o'clock. I want to encourage people who are listening to take a look at the links in the show, and after the show I'll drop a few extras, so maybe check back tomorrow. We do have a Patreon, and we've got some money saved up in there. We're probably going to end up donating at least some of it to Tracy Twyman's headstone fund. Our friend Tracy is still needing to catch up her fund to get a proper headstone for her burial, or for her grave, is still lacking the last time I looked. And I know I've been meaning to try and reach out and kind of do some behind the scenes fundraising, but it's just been a lot harder on me to try and pull it off than I thought it would be. You know, each time I approach it, I kind of end up procrastinating or distracting myself. So I'm being patient, but I'm not giving up by any means. You know, my goal is still the same, and I know the fund will remain there, and we will build it up. But that's part of why this show tonight was chosen, was just because this is kind of a soft, safe middle ground space between the tragedy that we all suffered together with losing Tracy unexpectedly, and eventually getting to something like an honorable memorial show, or to reintegrate her work back into our show as a way to keep it with us in remembrance. But even though week after week passes, I still feel pretty raw, and I know that me and you've talked about it, and you kind of feel the same way, Jim. You know, it's not like either one of us are rip raring to go. I saw that Clyde Lewis's producer, Ron, posted today on Facebook that they found some old archival interviews. So there is some new Twyman material that it's old, and I listened to like 5 or 10 minutes of something, and it was really nice to hear her voice. I didn't feel shocked or freaked out, so that really made me feel good. And I think that one interview is like an hour and a half, and it's up there for free, but I think you have to pay for access to the archive to get the other ones. But I might do that and then share it in our Discord, or share it in a discreet way, so that we don't have to all go sign up permanently or something. And that way we just can grab anything else that goes in the Tracy Twyman archive, because we're in a position to endlessly build an archive now. You know, we have a Dropbox link. If anybody doesn't have it, let me know, and I'll find a way to drop it where you can get to it. It's got a pretty good chunk of all of her stuff. Not everything, obviously. She was so prolific in her writing and publishing that I really doubt that anyone will ever put it all in one place, because you'd never get it all. She did so much.
Do you want to put the Dropbox in the doodly-doo at the bottom of the video?
Yeah, I'll put that in the description also. I got a list here. I'm going to put the Dog's Heads post, the Jesse Waugh interview, the Narco Satanico with Horsley, and I'll put the Dropbox. It may already be there, because I didn't delete all of the links. You know, there should be. Please, like I said earlier in the show, please add your email to our list, so that when we really start to get a push going for weekly reminders and other secret stuff, like secret mystery stuff that nobody else is going to get is going to be on the email list. That's where I'm going to send it to. If I find something that I think is valuable, I'm not going to put up a paywall like Clyde and Ron have a paywall there for their archive. It's understandable that they put Tracy's stuff in there, but if I find something like that, I'll probably share it for free, and it'll probably be on the email list. But the email list is going to be the best way for us to remind everybody that we're going live. If you're liking what you're seeing from us each week, please let us know on Patreon by kicking us a few bucks or signing up as a monthly contributor. We got some money in that account. We got some money in a pig there somewhere by where Jim is. A famous pig naming contest happened some many months ago, and this is Hamoinculus.
Oh, he's right here.
So I don't know if I want to liquidate our entire fund just for Tracy's headstone, but I figure we pull some money out of our pockets and out of that pig and out of that account and add a couple $100 or whatever we can muster. But yeah, there's Hamoinculus. We had a great time having a pig naming contest, and then Jem mailed out prizes to the people who won. And so
There he is.
there he is. Hamoinculus. What a name. What a name. But I guess what I started to say was if you're dealing with death in your life, or someone's going to die soon, or if it's just something that you're not comfortable with and it's never been good for you, please don't be afraid to approach it and confront it and start the process now while you're still alive to accept your own mortality and to acclimatize and accustom yourself with the idea that the rest of us are all just as mortal as you. And I got to encourage everyone that the more you do that, the stronger you are when unexpected death happens, the stronger you are when natural old age death or just a sickness happens. And if you can feel and act strong in the face of death, it puts you in a category away from everyone else because the world isn't thinking about it. The world's not willing to really confront or accept death. We're all a lot more likely to get ourselves a milkshake or smoke a joint or watch TV or do anything but plan for the idea that this is temporary. But it is, and there's nothing we can do about it except for work with it. And I saw that Snake Jones was saying that he's well acquainted and accustomed with death, and if you know him at all and know the things he does, you know that he's telling the truth because he helps people with drug addiction. And if you do that, then you see death a lot, And my mother was a hospice nurse for a long time, so I wasn't necessarily standing right next to death all the time, but I certainly was getting regular, detailed reports of how it's going. And so it's just better. If you're uncomfortable with it, then I'm encouraging you to take the risk to become more familiar with it so that you're stronger for the whole world when it comes around. Because as we all know, it caught us pretty damn off guard, but I think we're going to make it through this, I think we'll be able to hold true to our word and eventually be able to reintegrate Tracy into our show, even though we lost her in this world, I keep thinking that I'm a little closer than I was, and I am, but I'm still not close enough to do it. I'm not ready. I can't put on a clip right now of her, I can't do that on the show right now. I can do it privately, but I can't, and for a few weeks after it happened, if I did that at all, I'd just cry. So we're all healing, we're all making progress, and I want to encourage everyone that we'll get there together through this specific death, and if we do it right, we'll get through all deaths, and one day we'll find ourselves eternally alive together. I'm talking about when death used to exist, because in my system of belief, death actually dies, and I look forward to the day that it's dead. Once and for all, it would be nice.
Poor Abel, right?
Yeah, Abel was the first guy to get to experience what God was talking about when he said, hey, if you eat that thing right there, you're gonna die.
You're gonna die.
And of
Maybe
course,
luck. Maybe it's a grand adventure.
well, I love the there's extra canonical scriptures. I don't know if it's in the Apocrypha or the Gnostic scriptures, but it essentially says something like, "Don't take sin too seriously." And I don't think that it's not saying it's okay to sin. It's saying, yes, death and sin and evil are in the world, but that we don't have to fall for the trick of being so horrified and touched by it in a negative way that it causes us paralysis and spiritual turbulence. That you don't have to take it that seriously. And I'm trying to aspire to that. You know, obviously it's hard to be there. The world seems pretty terrible sometimes, you know.
It's hecka terrible.
It is hecka terrible.
Hecka terrible.
Sometimes it's hella bad.
It's hella bad. It's wicked hecka terrible.
That when you say hecka terrible, it makes me think of Hecate. Hecate? Hecate?
Is that like a Mexican beer?
It's either that or it's another goddess. I can't remember.
Yeah, there's a lot of goddesses.
There are.
And a few gods.
There's quite a few gods. I can feel it. Talking about death finally settled in on us, and now the show is, it's like we're trapped in an amber that's trying to set up, or some molasses just rolled over us. But that's okay, that's normal, right? Like, you can't have a whole show about death and just be clicking your heels and happy-go-lucky with your thumb in your belt and singing a song. It's real.
Yeah.
It's a really uncomfortable and weird part of this existence. It's so strange.
When I die, I want to go peacefully like my grandpa did, in his sleep. Not screaming like the passengers in his car.
You looked up death jokes?
When I go to heaven, I want to see my grandpa again. But he better have lost the nose hair and the old man smell. I sure will be glad when scientists discover a cure for natural causes. When you die, if you get a choice between regular heaven or pie heaven, choose pie heaven. It might be a trick, but if it's not, boy.
It sounds like Jack Handy.
Yeah, I think these are deep thoughts.
Yeah. Our stalwart old fan, Ryan Martin, really loved all the Jack Handy stuff, and he would read it in his deadpan Ryan Martin voice, and it was great.
I just read a list of the 100 things to do before you die. I was pretty surprised that yell for help wasn't one of them.
I remember being on a boat when we went, I was in Australia, and we were going snorkeling and scuba diving and taking a cruise, and that was one of the things that they tell you when they're doing the safety meetings and everything. They're like, make sure you drown really loud and make a lot of motions and noises. Don't drown all by yourself quietly over to the edge of the boat and then just like sink and drown. Like, make sure that you make a big fuss, like, I'm drowning. You know, I just thought it was a really lighthearted way to remind people that, you know, it's okay if you feel like you're sinking, you're drowning, you're not making it. It's okay to be really loud and really expressive about that you're not ready to drown. This is not why you came out here. You were trying to see fish and like go into the water, but you didn't want to drown, so you were gonna they really encourage you, like, drown really loud if you're gonna, so we can try to help. And it's like, that's funny. That's a funny way to approach it, you know.
Yeah, especially because like I think drowning is like choking, where when you're drowning you can't yell for help.
Yeah.
Like you can't be like, I'm choking. You gotta like hit your neck or something.
Yeah.
Like draw a ham sandwich.
Oh, Jim. Well, it's 10 o'clock, man. I think we should wrap this thing up. This was a good show. I'm glad we had it. I think we're going to shoot for having a lady on next week that we've been, she's been on with James True, and I'm not going to drop her name just yet, but that's the plan. She's an interesting character. I'll show you more about her this end of this week while we're at work. Maybe we'll throw some audio on and check her out, and then confirm, see if she's available next week. And if not, I don't know, maybe we can get Beyonce's drummer. We need to reach out to Beyonce's drummer. I'm going to put some links up in the chat. That should be it. I already prompted everyone to take action and join Patreon and or jump on the email list. I don't know what else to say except for okay, bye. That's what we say every week here on Picture Show. We look in the camera and we wave, take your hat off. Okay, so we got it's death, so we got to kind of do a sad, like slightly sad okay bye this week, Jim. So
Yeah, well, since we didn't really cover reincarnation, we'll have to come back.
yeah, we'll have to come back to reincarnation. I'm gonna write that down here on my piece of paper. I think we should do a whole show on it anyway, so that's good.
Yeah, I agree. That would be excellent.
And we can.
A copy of what's that book called? That enormous encyclopedic book about forgotten history.
Forbidden Archaeology?
Yeah. There's a bunch of stuff on reincarnation in there. It's pretty good.
Now wait, are you talking about the book I just said or the other book by Michael Cremo?
I think it was Forbidden Archaeology that I read all of.
Okay, maybe I'll pull it down as a reminder so that I don't forget that you just said so. Because yeah, when I bought this book from a brother, and he doesn't really look through it too much, so he gave it back to me not to give it back. But when I first bought it, I thought it would be like one of these regular little paperbacks, you know, like this size. I figured it would be like this. So it came in a box, and I'm like, oh my god, look at this thing.
Yeah, it was a commitment to read it.
Yeah, I've never read it, so I mean, I'll read it one of these days, but I'll definitely look. I wonder if it has an index. It does. It looks like it's got some index in here. Yeah, it's got an index, so I'll see if I can find reincarnation in here. I'll leave this sitting out so I remember. So, cool. Well, maybe that's the plan then. If we can't get this lady scheduled for next week, maybe we'll just plan on reincarnation. That way we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves, or like we keep talking about.
You want to have a moment of silence for Tracy? Silent prayer?
Yeah, we can have a silent prayer. I'm absolutely down with that. Because I was thinking about her a lot during this show, because some of the stuff we're saying is speculating as to what happens. And Tracy did come to me in a dream, and it seemed very vivid and real. And some of the other work we found kind of implies that people might end up hanging around this realm for a while. So for all we know, it could be actually part of our responsibility as a group to help her find her way where she needs to go, you know?
Yeah, I definitely think that through dreams, people that have passed on can communicate with us.
I mean, it sure seemed like it to me. I've never had it. I can't remember ever having a dream quite like that. And I described it in the Discord. There's a description of it there.
You were pretty shook the day that I talked to you and you told me about it.
When I woke up, it made me feel good because it was like I knew for sure she was here.
Yeah.
And then so that had to fade off. But at the same time, that feeling really never went away. That's kind of why I brought it up just now. Because some little part of me feels like she is still here. You know, she's not alive like we are. but some part of me feels like she's still here, and like whatever the Christian churches are doing by lighting candles for the dead, and whatever other people are doing by having familial altars, like I feel called to that, even though it was never part of my life. And I've been reading and studying a little bit about it, you know, because I don't know. I guess this whole situation has just prompted me to find my comfortable center around whatever that is, and then very carefully begin the process of taking action. Because I've never lit a candle for a dead person or anything like that, you know. I mean, I guess that's not true. Since Tracy's died, I actually occasionally, when I'm saying my own devotions, sometimes I will light a candle now for my dad, you know, and it's something I never really did before. So it's a start, but I have a habit of like overdoing things my whole life and doing too many things at once. So I figure death, I'm going to try and approach it as a slow, careful, thoughtful approach, you know. If I'm going to learn more about other people's death practices and family altars or lighting candles for the dead or praying to saints or praying for the dead, I'm going slow, so that if I'm going to integrate it, that it's not like putting a sticker on my guitar case, you know.
Yeah, you can't multitask your death.
Nope, you sure can't. So, but yeah, I agree. Let's see. I'll set a timer for, I think, 63 seconds. And we'll just have 1 minute of complete silence, and you can pray, meditate, do whatever it is anyone feels like they need to do. And I think show 63, that's fair to do 63 seconds.
I agree.
Technically that's 103. That's kind of weird. All right, please join us in a moment of silence for our lost friend, Tracy. I'm going to push the button now.